Chapter 1. Regression. Inside a spacious bedchamber, a young man could be seen sleeping on the bed. His eyebrows were furrowed as if he was experiencing a nightmare. Suddenly, his eyes sprung open and he abruptly sat up straight. Looking around, he was confused and disoriented. He clutched his head and organized his messy thoughts. I thought I died after getting shot by an arrow. How did I survive? Alaric could still vividly remember the last scenes before his death. The comrades who died for him, the enemies he had slaughtered, and the arrow that ultimately killed him. He remembered it all. While he was recalling the scenes of that battle, a series of knocks on the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in." Alaric was surprised by the young voice that came out of his mouth. A young maidservant pushed open the door. She bowed to him the moment she stepped inside the room. "My lord, it's almost time for breakfast." When he saw the familiar yet unfamiliar face, Alaric was shocked, disbelief written all over his face. "Nana?" His voice trembled as emotions welled up in his heart. The young maidservant was embarrassed when she heard this endearing nickname. Just as she was about to say something, she saw Alaric slowly approaching her, his eyes filled with a mixture of joy and guilt. Is it really you? You're alive!" Alaric's voice choked as he stared at the young girl. She was Elena. She has been with him since her parents sold her to his family. She was only 6 years old at that time, while he was 10. At first, he didn't like being around with her. He felt that she was a nuisance, but Elena's sincere and innocent heart moved him. He didn't treat her like a servant. He cared for her like she was his real sister. However, something tragic happened. This innocent young girl later committed suicide after being repeatedly abused by his uncle. She was only 17 when she died. He only found out the true reason for her suicide a few years later when his uncle, with a slip of his tongue, accidentally mentioned it in his drunken stupor. Looking at Elena's childish face, Alaric took her in his arms and embraced her tightly. When he felt the warmth of her body, he could no longer hold back his emotions as tears slid down his cheeks. "And my lord!" Elena raised her head in surprise when she felt him trembling. And when she saw that he was crying, she was flustered. "Why are you crying, my lord?" Hearing her worried voice, Alaric smiled as he gently stroked the back of her head. "I'm just happy to see you again. I missed you so much, Nana." He could still remember the days when he cried every time he visited her tomb. The remorse and the regret from his past life made him even more emotional. Elena was embarrassed and shyly lowered her head. "Stop saying such embarrassing things, my lord. And please don't call me Nana in front of other people." Looking at her pouting her lips and hearing her shy voice, Alaric felt the warmth that he had been seeking for a long time. He wiped off his tears with his hands. Yes, I won't call you Nana in front of other people," he smiled as he gently brushed her hair with his fingers. "HMPH, you're teasing me again." Elena looked away from him, feigning anger with her arms crossed. All right, I won't tease you anymore." Alaric squeezed her bulging cheeks, which earned another glare from Elena. Suddenly, Alaric saw his reflection in the mirror. He was stunned. In the mirror was a young face, handsome and filled with vigor, silvery white tousled hair, chiseled jawline, and a pair of golden crimson-colored eyes. It was far from the haggard and depressed face that he was used to. "Elena, what is the date today?" he asked, his voice shaking with uncertainty and confusion. "The date? It's the 3rd of August, year 208 of the Estanian calendar." Year 208. Alaric's eyes widened. Countless thoughts flashed in his mind in that instant. He had actually traveled 10 years into the past. Just then, he remembered something important. He grabbed Elena's shoulders and asked with a hint of anxiety in his voice, "Where are my parents?" Elena was bewildered. He was acting a bit strangely this morning. "His lordship and the madam should be at the dining hall by now," she responded. Without bothering to change his clothes, Alaric hastily stepped out of his bedchamber and headed to the dining hall, a mixture of excitement and apprehension settling over him. My lord! Wait for me, Elena called out, but he didn't stop. The servants in the hallway were surprised to see him running in his nightwear, but Alaric ignored them and headed straight to the dining hall. As soon as he got there, he saw a middle-aged man with a gaunt face. With broad shoulders and visible battle scars on his arms, he looked incredibly intimidating. This man was none other than Baron Lucas Silvasod, the current head of House Silvasod. The Baron was known as the Shield of the North because of his commitment to defending the northern border of Ostania. His strong martial power also solidified his position as one of the greatest warriors in the Empire. However, 5 years later, in the year 213 of the Estanian calendar, the mighty Baron would die and leave the world full of regrets. Upon his death, House Silvasod fell into the hands of his uncle, and Alaric's mother died a year later due to her grief. Sitting beside the Baron was a woman who looked to be in her late 20s. Her long black hair fell over her shoulders, and she had a pair of obsidian eyes that radiated with gentleness. She carried herself with grace, and she had this unique charm of a mature woman. This woman was Alaric's mother, Maria Keller. Maria Keller was the daughter of a rich merchant. Just like her merchant father, she was also skilled in business management. It was because of her efforts that the impoverished House Silvasod was able to accumulate a decent amount of wealth in recent years. Seeing his parents alive and well, Alaric felt the urge to cry once again. Dad, Mom. He had so many words to say, but it was stuck in his mouth. What are you standing there for? Sit down. The Baron's stern voice drifted into his ears. His father was just as he had remembered, strict and cold. However, Alaric knew that behind his stern face was a loving father and husband who would do anything for his family. Alaric held back his emotions and took a seat beside his father. Why are you still in your nightwear? Maria asked with concern as she stared at her son's face. Lucas didn't say anything, but it looked like he also wanted to hear Alaric's explanation. About that, I woke up late. Alaric found a random excuse. You should sleep early tonight. It won't be good for your body if you always sleep late, his mother reminded him. Yes, mother. Alaric smiled as he nodded his head. At the corner of his eyes, he noticed Elena sticking her head out by the door, peeking at him while making a funny face. Alaric beckoned to her. Nana, come and sit beside me. Elena was so shocked by his words that she immediately hid herself. Seeing this, Alaric chuckled and shook his head in amusement. Dad, Mom, I'd like to invite Elena to dine with us. Lucas and Maria were already aware of the close relationship between Alaric and his young maidservant. In truth, they were already planning to make her his concubine as soon as she reached a marriageable age. All right, she can join us to eat. Lucas nodded. He then made a hand signal to the old butler who was standing behind him. Elena, come in and sit with us, Maria called out gently, while the old butler quietly grabbed a chair for Elena. The young maidservant who was hiding outside jolted when she heard this. Oh my God! She was screaming nervously in her heart. She never thought that Alaric would actually boldly ask the Baron and the madam to let her join them for breakfast. Left with no choice, Elena nervously entered the dining hall. She bowed at Lucas and Maria. Her eyes shifted with anxiety. Meanwhile, the old butler placed a chair next to Alaric and returned to his spot behind the Baron. Come here, Nana. Alaric patted the empty seat next to him. He even pulled it closer to him. Elena blushed in embarrassment when she heard him calling her with that nickname. GRR. I told him not to call me that in front of others. She timidly lowered her head and walked towards the empty seat. After sitting down, she didn't even dare lift her head. It was the first she had sat with them at the dinner table, so she couldn't help but feel uneasy. Relax. We are just going to eat. She felt Alaric's warm hand patting her head. Stop teasing her. You are only making her uncomfortable. Maria gave him a look of reproach. I'm fine, madam. Lord Alaric isn't making me uncomfortable. I'm just a little bit nervous. Elena spoke in his defense. Alaric smugly smiled at his mother. Watching them bicker, the Baron's lips curved upwards. A while later, the servants came in to bring their food. Chapter 2: SSS-Rank Swordsmanship Talent. After a hearty meal with his family, Alaric went to the bathroom for a quick bath. Inside the bathroom, Alaric was comprehending how he was able to return to the past. Were all the things he experienced just a long nightmare? He wanted to make himself believe that it was just a dream, but he knew that he had truly traveled back in time. He sighed and sorted out his thoughts. 10 years from now, the current emperor of Estonia would die. His death would later fracture the empire because of the civil war caused by his sons who were both vying for the throne. However, this wasn't the most important thing in Alaric's mind. He had to prevent the death of his family and the downfall of House Silvesald. His main priority was to observe his uncle. That guy was the main culprit for the fall of House Silvesald. He secretly plotted to take over Lucas's position to replace him as the new head of the household. To achieve this, he bribed one of the servants and asked them to poison Lucas's food. Even though Lucas was a powerful warrior, his body gradually weakened under the influence of the potent poison. That was how the mighty Baron Lucas Silvesald fell. I should observe my uncle's movements discreetly. Alaric's face turned cold as he recalled the image of that kind-looking middle-aged man. He might look like a harmless guy from his outward appearance, but beneath that kind facade was a venomous beast of a human. Just the thought of him filled Alaric with profound rage. Out of nowhere, a transparent science screen suddenly appeared before him, almost making him jump up in surprise. Loading system. Scanning the host. Alaric Silvesald Knight Apprentice XP 7100ths. Potential B. Talent: Horseback Riding D, Swordsmanship D, Close Combat D, Archery F, Hunting E, Tracking F. Strength 17. Stamina 18. Agility 15. Vitality 17. Endurance 17. Mana 3. Battle points 0. You received a newbie gift pack. An image of a golden gift box appeared on the screen. Do you want to open the newbie gift pack? Yes, no. Alaric was baffled by what he was seeing. He even thought that he was hallucinating. He closed his eyes, but when he opened them, the translucent science screen was still there. He reached out his hand and tried to touch the screen. Yes. He accidentally clicked yes. Opening newbie gift pack. You received by 1 SSS class talent card. You received 1,000 battle points. You received by 1 elite knight card. Alaric took his time to understand what was happening, but he was still perplexed. The screen displayed what seemed to be the quantification of his physical abilities. It also displayed his set of skills and even the progress of his training. Is it showing my abilities? His brain spasmed as he tried to understand what the letters represented. I'll deal with that later. Now what's this newbie gift pack thing? From the newbie gift pack, he received 2 cards and 1,000 battle points. One of the cards was golden in color and with a sword drawn on it. The other one was a blue card with the image of a knight. Do you want to use the SSS class talent card? Yes, no. The words on the screen were written in a language that he couldn't recognize, but strangely enough, his mind automatically translated them into the language of Estonia. After some hesitation, he clicked yes. You awakened the SSS class swordsmanship talent. Suddenly, his mind shook as if he had experienced enlightenment. The sword moves that he found difficult to execute in the past seemed to have become simple and easy to understand. He could even recall the subtle movements that he failed to notice before. He was in this magical state of comprehension for almost 10 minutes. When he regained his senses, he finally realized what that sword talent thing was. What the hell? It actually helped me comprehend those difficult sword movements. What is going on here? He was dumbfounded. I think I stumbled upon an immortal relic. This thing might be left behind by an immortal. My return to the past might be related to this as well. He absent-mindedly stared at the science screen. Do you want to use the Elite Knight card? Yes, no. I wonder what this card will do. It won't summon an Elite Knight, right? Alaric laughed, but his smile suddenly stiffened when he realized that it was possible. Thinking about this, he hastily stepped out of the bathroom and headed to his bedchamber. He didn't dare use the card while he was still in the bathroom. After changing into a new set of clothes, he focused his attention on the screen and clicked yes. In that instant, a blinding light forced him to close his eyes. When he opened them, a middle-aged man fully dressed in leather battle armor was already standing before him. He exuded a mighty aura unique only to those who had gone through numerous life and death battles. He had long wavy black hair and a pair of brown eyes that seemed to have seen through the darkness of the world. Seeing this person, Alaric's widened in shock and he couldn't help but take a step back. "My name is Galliner. I swear my eternal loyalty to you, my lord." The middle-aged man half knelt as he swore the knight's oath. "I really summoned an elite knight." No way! Alaric couldn't believe that his guess turned out to be right. To become an elite knight, one had to accumulate enough mana and train their physical body to a certain extent. Before his death, Alaric was an elite knight and it took him years of arduous training to become one. If his training time from childhood was to be counted, it took him more than 20 years to become an elite knight. "Rise," Alaric muttered as he observed the middle-aged elite knight. Hearing his words, Galliner stood up. Alaric was a tall guy himself. He was at 196 centimeters, but he was still a head shorter than Galliner. This guy might be as tall as his father, or probably even taller. Now, how should I explain this to my parents? Alaric paced around the room, thinking of a good excuse that wouldn't make his parents suspicious. At this moment, he heard a series of knocks on the door, followed by Elena's cute voice. "My lord, it's time for your training. His lordship wants you to head to the training grounds as soon as possible." "All right, I'll be there." Looking at the still Galliner, Alaric didn't know what to do. What should I do with this guy? I can't let him stay here. Alaric sighed helplessly. From the looks of it, his only choice was to bring Galliner with him to the training grounds. Leaving him inside his bedchamber might cause chaos, especially if the servants or guards would find him. "I'll bring you to the training grounds. It's best if you don't speak when someone asks you things, but in the off chance that you have no choice, this is what you should tell them." Alaric taught him how to respond in case his parents asked him some questions. Galliner was silent the entire time, so he couldn't tell if the guy had remembered his words. "Follow me?" Alaric shook his head. He could only make an excuse on the spot. Whether his father would believe it, he couldn't care less anymore. As they headed out of the mansion, Galliner's presence quickly attracted attention. "Who is that guy? I haven't seen him before. He's so tall. Is he a knight?" Alaric ignored the curious servants and brought Galliner directly to the training grounds. When they arrived, everyone turned their gazes and looked at them. Lucas stopped his training and turned his gaze. His eyes narrowed as he looked at the man walking respectfully one step behind his son. "Father." Lucas nodded indifferently. "That man is. Here goes nothing." Alaric put on a calm look as he responded. "This is Galliner. He is an elite knight. He is now working for me." Hearing this, Lucas was inwardly surprised. It was difficult to hire elite knights. Even the allure of money couldn't move them. This is because most knights didn't like to work under someone. House Stilvesud only had 3 elite knights. One was the commander of the guards. The other one was the old butler, and the last one was Alaric's uncle. As for Lucas, he was already a transcendent knight, the realm beyond the elite knight. The fact that Alaric managed to invite an elite knight to work for him made Lucas quite pleased. "I see. He can stay here and practice with you. I will process his identification later. As long as he doesn't have a complicated background, I will accept him as one of us." Alaric was secretly relieved that his father didn't ask more questions. "Don't worry, father. Galliner is a wandering elite knight. He doesn't have any issues with his background." Lucas nodded upon hearing his words. "You are already 18. As someone who will inherit my position, it is necessary for you to have your own trusted subordinates. You should start gathering more people on your side. However, their allowances and salaries will be your problem. Do you understand? Chapter 3, Daily Mission. Yes, Father. I will find a way to earn money. I won't touch our family's treasury. As someone from the future, he knew many locations where he could find valuable things that were worth a lot of money. He also knew which businesses they could invest in. You don't need to feel pressured if you need help. Don't hesitate to ask for my help, Lucas said before he went back to his training. Alaric bowed gratefully to his father. He then turned his head to Galliner. Galliner, you can train on your own here. You can find the equipment there. Just be careful when you are swinging your sword. Galliner nodded. Yes, my lord. He cupped his fists and went to grab some training equipment to begin with his training. Meanwhile, Alaric went to the weapon rack and grabbed a steel sword. He now had the SSS class swordsmanship talent, so he wanted to find out if it wasn't a mere fluke that he had comprehended all those sword movements. Some of the guards curiously looked over. Alaric rarely came here to practice, so they wanted to see what he would do. Normally, people in the training grounds do simple physical training to work on their muscles and strength. Some also hone their weapon proficiency with repeated exercises. As for the knights, other than physical training and weapon proficiency training, they also do mana training. Alaric was only a knight apprentice, so he still couldn't control the mana in his body. Before starting with his sword training, Alaric did some light exercises to warm up his muscles. However, before he could start, the translucent cyan screen appeared before him. He looked around and checked if the others could see the screen, but no one showed any reaction. So I'm the only one who can see this thing. Alaric was no longer surprised. He already believed that this thing was an immortal relic and he was planning to make full use of it. Why wouldn't he use it when it's already handed to him on a silver platter? Only fools would do that. Daily mission. 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 pull-ups, 10 kilometers run, 100 vertical slashes, 100 diagonal slashes, 100 horizontal slashes, 100 stabs. Rewards 10 battle points, 1 EXP, and 1 stat point. Penalty for failure, 1 random stat point. What is this? Alaric stared at the tutorial for the weird training exercises on the daily mission. Each exercise had a tutorial, so he quickly understood them. So if I do these exercises, I will be rewarded. There is even a penalty. Alaric still had no clue about the specifics of the translucent cyan screen. However, his instincts told him that something good would happen if he followed the weird exercises. So that's how you do a push-up. I just need 100, right? After watching the push-up tutorial, Alaric followed the posture and started doing push-ups. The guards stared at him in confusion. The exercises they normally did were lifting heavy objects, wall climbing with weights, or sparring with training weapons. What is Lord Alaric doing? Is that a secret exercise to train the body? Lucas also noticed his peculiar exercises. He rubbed his chin and observed Alaric. That exercise puts pressure on the arms and the shoulders. Every movement also squeezes the core muscles. Where did he learn that from? Alaric ignored them and focused on completing the mission. At first, he thought that it would be easy, but he realized that it was actually very tiring. Just doing 100 push-ups alone made his shoulders and arms feel a bit sore. 100 push-ups. Alaric rested for half a minute before he proceeded with the next exercise. 100 sit-ups, 100 pull-ups, 10 kilometers run. After an hour, he finally completed half of the exercises. So it's finally time for the sword exercises, he muttered after seeing the tutorial for vertical slashes. It was just a simple slash with no flashy movements. Alaric grabbed the training sword he had temporarily put aside earlier. Swish! Swish! He followed the posture of the tutorial. The posture was different compared to what he normally did during combat. The vertical slash on the tutorial looked swift, accurate and graceful. Wow! Is that a sword technique? It looks like a normal slash, but the movements are more stylish and sophisticated. As a transcendent knight sword user, Lucas discovered something more in the vertical slashes that Alaric performed. That posture looks more natural than the orthodox stance. It also uses less arm strength since the force is drawn from every part of the body. The more Lucas observed, the more astonished he became. 100 vertical slashes, 100 diagonal slashes, 100 horizontal slashes. Half an hour later, only one exercise was left. Alaric was covered in sweat. He wasn't used to all those exercises, so his muscles were sore. After complaining inwardly, he watched the sword stab tutorial. His SSS class sword talent helped him to quickly grasp the movements of the exercise. He didn't even need to rewatch the tutorial. 10 minutes later, 100 stabs. You received 10 battle points. You received 1 EXP. You received 1 stat point. Alaric Silvasod Knight Apprentice EXP, 71 100ths. Potential, B. Traits, Horseback Riding D, Swordsmanship SSS. Close Combat D, Archery F, Hunting E, Tracking F. Strength, 17+. Stamina, 18+. Agility, 15+. Vitality, 17+. Endurance, 17+. Mana, 3. Battle points, 1010. Stat points, 1. Alaric saw the changes on the screen, which displayed the quantification of his physical abilities. What is this EXP thing? Will I become a knight once it reaches 100? A look of anticipation flashed in his eyes as he thought of this. In his last life, he only became a knight when he was in his 20s. What do these battle points do? Unfortunately, there was no tutorial on these things, so he could only temporarily put it aside. Suddenly, he noticed that there were ++ symbols on his stats. These symbols weren't here the last time I checked it. Out of curiosity, he clicked the plus symbol on his strength. +1 strength. A message appeared on the screen, followed by his strength going from 17 to 18. The stat points also turned to 0. It finally dawned on him. So the stat points can increase my physical abilities. What a pity. I only got 1 from the daily mission. He tried testing his strength by lifting some weights. It wasn't much, but he did feel a slight increase in his strength. Sweet. Alaric. Lucas' voice interrupted his thoughts. What can I do for you, father? Lucas approached him and said, Those exercises you performed, where did you learn them? Alaric scratched his head as he thought of a random excuse. I learned them myself. By yourself, Lucas was surprised to hear that. Alaric nodded. Yes. I thought that doing those exercises could help me develop my body. Then what about those sword techniques? Lucas sensed the fluctuations in his eyes, but he didn't expose his son. I felt that the orthodox sword stances put way more emphasis on strength. This is good, but in the battlefield where stamina is important, you need to preserve as much strength as possible. That's why I made some adjustments with the postures to make them less draining to the muscles. This was Alaric's comment on the orthodox sword stance. He felt that the ones shown in the tutorials were better. He didn't know why he felt that way. He guessed that it was related to his SSS class swordsmanship talent. After awakening that talent, it was as if he could see through the mistakes in any sword movements with just one look. Lucas became silent. He felt that Alaric wasn't saying the whole truth. There must be some kind of secret related to those exercises, but why did he perform them in front of the others? I should ask him again next time. All right, you may go. Lucas waved his hand. Alaric bowed lightly. He then left the training ground with Galliner. After they left, Lucas grabbed his sword. It was a two-handed heavy sword that was similar to the one Galliner had. Lucas closed his eyes and recalled Alaric's posture when he performed sword slashes. Seeing this, everyone immediately gave him some space. A moment later, Lucas opened his eyes and abruptly swung his heavy sword. Swish! The sword made a sharp humming sound and even caused a violent fluctuation of the wind. Lucas was stunned by the unexpected power behind that slash. Chapter 4. Becoming a Knight. 2nd of September, year 208 on the Estonian calendar. It has been a month since Alaric returned to the past. He spent the whole month of August adjusting to his younger body. He also familiarized himself with the people and the environment. Everything was happening exactly like how it had played out in his past life. Other than doing his daily training, Alaric also ventured into business with the help of his mother. Even though he knew about the future, he was still a complete newbie in business. He realized how awesome his mother was when he started his own business. Today my XP will reach 100 after I complete my daily mission. Alaric headed to the training ground as he inspected his profile. Alaric Silvasod Knight Apprentice XP 99 100ths. Potential B. Traits: Horseback Riding D, Swordsmanship SSS, Close Combat D, Archery F, Hunting E, Tracking F. Strength 18+, Stamina 18+, Agility 15+, Vitality 17+, Endurance 17+, Mana 3. Battle points 1,290. Stat points 28. He had already accumulated 28 stat points, but he had no plans to allocate them for the time being. Good morning, my lord. Sir Galliner is also here. Lucas wasn't there, so Alaric immediately started his training. 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 pull-ups, 10 kilometers run, 100 vertical slashes, 100 diagonal slashes, 100 horizontal slashes, 100 stabs. You received 10 battle points. You received 1 EXP. You received 1 stat point. You have accumulated enough EXP to advance. Do you want to use 1,000 battle points to advance to the next realm? Yes, no. I finally succeeded. Alaric was thrilled when he saw the system prompts. So that's what the battle points are for. Alaric thought as he clicked yes. 1,000 battle points. You have been promoted to the Knight realm. Alaric Silvasod Knight EXP 0.500ths. Potential B. Traits: Horseback Riding D, Swordsmanship SSS, Close Combat D, Archery F, Hunting E, Tracking F. Strength 18+28+, Stamina 18+28+, Agility 15+25+, Vitality 17+27+, Endurance 17+27+, Mana 13+, Battle points 300, Stat points 29. All his stats increased by 10 points after his advancement. It was a qualitative leap in strength. Just then, a burst of mana leaked out of his body. The nearby guards who were in the middle of their training were stunned when they sensed the fluctuations of mana. Although mana was invisible, trained fighters like them were sensitive to it. Lord Alaric has become a knight, someone shouted. Hearing this, everyone immediately turned their gazes to Alaric. The normal guards could hardly detect it, but the few knights among them sensed the mana coalescing within Alaric's body. An 18-year-old knight? Unbelievable! One of the older knights muttered in disbelief. Knights were individuals who had adapted to mana after tempering their bodies to withstand this invisible energy. They were fearsome warriors who could take on tens of normal soldiers at once. To become a knight, one had to temper a body capable of withstanding mana. This process would normally take a long time. In the Empire, the youngest to ever become a knight was from over 100 years ago. He was 16 at that time. He was also the current Emperor of Estonia, Emperor John Philip Estonia. He was already more than 100 years old at this moment, but because of his high level of attainment in martial arts, he managed to live a long life. I really became a knight. Alaric clenched his fists in excitement. In his past life, he only became a knight when he was 24 years old. What's going on here? Lucas rushed here when he heard the commotion. When he caught sight of his son, he immediately sensed the fluctuation of mana in his body. Alaric, you've become a knight. he muttered in disbelief. Even for himself, he only became a knight when he was 22. Good? I knew you would do better than me. Lucas couldn't help but feel proud of his son. You deserve a celebration. We will host a party for you next week to celebrate your advancement. Lucas couldn't conceal the smile on his face. He was happy for his son's advancement. That's too much, Father. There's no need to celebrate it. Alaric scratched his head, feeling a bit embarrassed since he didn't advance the normal way. How can you say that? In Estonia, only His Highness the Crown Prince achieved similar feat. You should be proud of yourself, my son. I have already decided. We will have a party. I will also invite my friends over to join the celebration. It was the first time he had seen this side of Lucas. In Alaric's past life, his father was already gone when he became a knight. Looking at how happy his father was, Alaric smiled and nodded. All right, Father, I'll leave the preparations to you. I still have to visit the shop to see how everyone is doing, so I'll take my leave first. Hold on. Are you talking about the workshop you recently opened? That's right. My workers just started with the production 2 weeks ago. The products should be ready by now. I want to check them myself, Alaric replied. I see. In that case, you should invite your workers to join the celebration. Hearing this, Alaric's eyes lit up. All right. I'll make sure that they will come. Lucas smiled and waved his hand impatiently. You may go. I still have to send the invitation letters to my friends. Yes, Father. Alaric bowed and watched him leave. Looking at his father's excited figure, he couldn't help but shake his head. So he can also smile like that. After Lucas left, the guards immediately surrounded Alaric and congratulated him again. Alaric spent another 10 minutes thanking everyone before he left the training ground with Galliner. The workshop he opened was outside their territory. It was located in a nearby city, Vale. It was a place with hundreds of thousands of residents. To get there, Alaric took a horse-drawn carriage. They traveled for almost an hour before they arrived. Looking at the tall walls that surrounded the city, Alaric's eyes burned with passion. I will make our territory bigger than this place. With the help of the immortal relic and his knowledge of the future, he was confident that he could build an even more prosperous city than Vale. A moment later, their carriage finally entered the city. Alaric's workshop was located at the heart of the city. There was a lot of traffic there, so he bought an old workshop and rebuilt it. We're here, my lord, the coachman's voice drifted into his ears. Alaric stepped out of the carriage and looked at the newly refurbished 2-story building. It was far from the decrepit building that it was before. Stay here, Galliner. I'll go in by myself. Yes, my lord. Galliner bowed his head. Alaric entered the workshop, and the first thing that greeted him was the fragrant scent of lily and jasmine. This is it. This is the smell that I was familiar with. As soon as he entered the shop, the 2 female shop attendants were stunned. My lord, you should have told us that you are visiting today. We could have waited for you outside. One of the ladies, a young woman with average facial features but a bombshell of a body, exclaimed as she bowed her head deeply. Why would I make you wait outside? It's too hot out there. Alaric shook his head. By the way, where is the manager? He asked. The manager is inspecting the products in the production room, my lord. He didn't want us to go in, so we can only wait here. The one who answered was the other lady, a woman in her late 20s. She had fair white skin and above-average facial features. I see. Are there any completed products? Yes, my lord. The manager brought them in this morning. Would you like to see them? The woman with a bombshell body replied, Yes. Let's have a look. Alaric nodded, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. The 2 ladies walked to the cabinet and took out 5 rectangular boxes. They then carefully placed them on the table. Please inspect them, my lord. The manager worked really hard to make them, the fair-skinned woman remarked. Nodding his head, Alaric opened the boxes one by one. Soon, the fragrant scent of different kinds of flowers assailed his nostrils. Inside the boxes was an item called scented soap. This thing was used to cleanse the body and rid it of dirt. In his past life, it was a very popular product among women, especially to the nobility. Before it was created, people used the older version of soap wherein they used animal fats and wood ashes mixed with water. It had an unpleasant smell, but it could remove dirt. The scented soap was created by a middle-aged commoner. When it was released to the market, it quickly became famous. The man who created it also became rich overnight, but the value of his product attracted the attention of a corrupt official who later ordered his arrest. His wealth was confiscated and even the recipe of his product was interrogated out of his mouth. He was later executed by the official. Alaric heard about it since it became the talk of the town in his past life when the official's corruption was discovered. This will become my source of money in the future. Alaric could already see money rolling in his pockets. Chapter 5. Visiting the Orphanage. Alaric entered the production room after inspecting the completed products. Didn't I tell you that you're not allowed in? My lord, why are you here? This place is dirty. A middle-aged man with shaggy hair and a messy beard was startled when he saw Alaric. Vince, you look like you didn't sleep for a few days. Alaric smiled wryly at him. This man was the creator of soap, a talented individual with an innovative mind. The only bad thing about him was that he only takes a bath once a week. It was very ironic since he was the man who brought soap into the world. It's fine. I slept 2 days ago. Vince waved it off as if it was a normal thing. Alaric could only shake his head helplessly. This guy was so obsessed with his inventions that he would even go as far as skipping rest and meals. He was truly a peculiar man. You should stop that unhealthy lifestyle, Vince. It won't be good for your body. You're not young anymore. You shouldn't overdo it. Vince stared at him weirdly. Sometimes I think that you are not a noble, my lord. Nobles don't care about their servants' lives. You are different. That's why I decided to work for you. Hearing this, Alaric smiled and shook his head. Enough about me. Are the products ready to be put up for sale? When he mentioned the products, Vince eagerly showed off his creations. These are all the soaps I made, my lord. They only need to be packaged in boxes and they will be ready to be put up for sale. How many have you made? Alaric asked. Vince rubbed his chin and thought for a moment. I think I made around 600 pieces. 600! That's not enough. Alaric shook his head. This was far from the ideal amount he was looking for. If you want to increase the production, we will need more people, but there is a high chance that a recipe will be leaked, Vince muttered. Don't worry about that. I'll take care of the personnel issue. Just take some rest for now. You can begin with the production after I send the new workers over. Alaric knew where to find trustworthy people. Ooh, fine. You're the boss. I'll listen to you. Vince clicked his tongue. Alaric chuckled when he saw his expression. By the way, there will be a celebration in the mansion next week. You guys better be there. I'll send you the invitation cards later. A celebration? Is it for a birthday? Vince raised an eyebrow. A curious look hung on his face. Alaric smiled mysteriously. You'll know soon. Seeing that he had no intention to tell him, Vince shrugged his shoulders. Close the shop and go home. I'll take my leave first. Alaric patted his shoulder and stepped out of the production room. Alaric also informed the two ladies about the celebration. After some small talk with them, he left the shop. Let's go, Alaric said to Galliner, who was waiting outside the shop. He entered the carriage while Galliner sat beside the coachman. Let's head to the orphanage, Alaric muttered with his arms crossed. Yes, my lord, the coachman acknowledged. He then whipped the horses and urged them to move. In Vale, there existed a place for homeless kids. It was a small orphanage founded by an old couple. In his past life, he befriended a few soldiers who came from that place. They called it their home. 15 minutes later, they arrived in front of a rundown 3-story building. It was surrounded by different kinds of plants and fruit trees. Even from inside the carriage, Alaric could already hear the sound of the children laughing. Alaric stepped out of the carriage and observed the building. It looked like an abandoned house. On the surface of the building were traces of repairs that looked completely out of place. With a glance, one could tell that it was done by an amateur who had no knowledge of carpentry. Outside the building, Alaric saw a few children dressed in dirty linen clothes running around the vegetable garden. "Galliner, you better stay here. You will only scare off the children if you come with me." Alaric stopped Galliner from following him. The guy was too intimidating for the children. They might cry if they saw him. "Yes, my lord." Galliner didn't show any reaction and bowed his head. At this moment, the children finally noticed their presence. They were scared when they saw Galliner's towering height and ferocious appearance. They stopped playing and quickly hid behind the trees. They stuck their heads out and nervously watched Alaric, who was moving towards them. "Hey, who are you? What's your business here?" Alaric turned his head and saw a young man who looked to be in his late teens. Behind him was an old couple walking side by side. "You rude kid. Stop shouting at our guest." The woman, who seemed to be in her 50s, scolded the teen and beat him with a broom. "Grandma, that guy looks suspicious." The teen pointed at Alaric with a look of defiance. Seeing this guy, Alaric couldn't help but laugh. "So this is what you are like as a kid, Rasmus." This rebellious teen was one of the few people he had befriended in his past life after he was conscripted by the crown prince. Rasmus was abandoned by his parents at birth, and he was raised by the old couple at this orphanage, so he was extremely protective of them. The old man was just calmly observing the situation when he took notice of the insignia on Alaric's clothes. His eyes flashed and he immediately pulled Rasmus behind him as he asked cautiously, "My lord, are you perhaps from House Silvesod?" House Silvesod. Rasmus was stunned when he heard this. Even though he was a commoner, he had received some education from the old couple. He was told that House Silvesod was the biggest reason why Vale was able to stand firm despite the continuous attacks from outside forces. Those stories made Rasmus admire them. "That's right. My name is Alaric Silvesod. I hope you are not offended by my unannounced visit." Alaric cupped his fists, a standard salute of the knights. Seeing this, the old man returned the salute. From his snappy posture and resolute eyes, Alaric sensed the valor of a veteran knight. "You honor us with your presence, my lord. I am William Dominic, a former knight of Ostania." After exchanging some greetings with the old couple, Alaric extended his hand to Rasmus and smiled. "Hello. I'm sorry if I had offended you. Can you tell me your name?" "It's good to see you again, my friend." Alaric's eyes flashed with emotion. Memories of Rasmus appeared in his mind and played like a movie. After knowing that he was from House Silvesod, Rasmus was no longer hostile. "I should be the one apologizing. You can just call me Rasmus, my lord." He scratched his head, feeling embarrassed by his earlier behavior. "Rasmus, is it? We should be of the same age. There's no need to be formal." "Let's head in, my lord. We can continue our conversation inside." The retired knight, William, invited him to their humble home. Chapter 6. Alaric's Generous Offer. "My lord, can you tell us why you have decided to visit our humble home?" William asked with a serious look as soon as they took their seats. "There's no need to be nervous. I came here because I was made aware of your tough financial situation. Your orphanage takes in children who have no home. You give them food and clothes and even provide them with basic education. You have my respect. However, it must have been tough raising the children without sufficient funding. I believe you guys have already tried asking the officials for some donation, but you were rejected." William sighed and shook his head. "It is as you have said, my lord. We tried asking the officials for financial support, but they didn't even bother to speak with us. We also tried reaching out to some merchants, but they actually wanted to get the young girls in exchange for funding. How could we agree to their ridiculous demands?" He looked agitated when he mentioned that. "Since then, we started growing our own food. We also raised some livestock." We then sell the extra vegetables and fruits at the market for money. That's how we managed to survive until now." The old woman, Josephine, cried, probably saddened by their difficult situation. Rasmus held the old woman's hand as he held back his tears from falling. Alaric felt sorry for what they had experienced. "How about this? I will give financial support to the orphanage. I will also send some teachers to give the children a proper education." The faces of Josephine and Rasmus brightened when they heard his words. Only William remained calm in the face of his tempting offer. "What's the catch, my lord? There was no free lunch in this world. In exchange, the orphanage will send some children to work for my shop." William's expression changed, so Alaric quickly explained. "It's not a difficult job. They just need to make something for me. They will also get paid daily for the job." Alaric took out a small box from his pocket and showed it to William. "This is the product of my shop." William and the other two curiously looked at the item inside the box. When William opened it, the fragrant scent of lilies slapped their faces. "This is... how fragrant! It smells like lilac." Alaric smiled when he saw their reaction. "That thing is called scented soap. We haven't released it in the market yet since we don't have a lot in stock. Once we get enough manpower, we will begin with the production and sell it as soon as we have enough supply for the market." William closed the box and put it on the table. "What does this thing do, my lord?" he asked. "It's similar to the soap we use to clean the body. The only difference is that we don't use animal fats, but flower oils and some other ingredients. Using it will make your body smell nice." Alaric had already memorized his spiel. "That good?" Josephine looked interested in this improved product. "Yes. To tell you the truth, this is my first business, so I want it to succeed. What do you think?" William frowned, seemingly in deep thought. "How long do the children need to work? And how much are you paying them?" Alaric was thrilled. It looked like he had already agreed. He only needed to give the old man a satisfactory response to get his approval. "We can't let the children below 12 years old work since they are still too young and clumsy for the job. They will have to work for 6 hours a day and they will get to rest days every week. As for their salary, I will give them 20 copper coins per day and 4 copper coins for every extra hour of work they do." "That much? I'm in." "I'll do it," Rasmus eagerly said, but he immediately shut his mouth when he saw William giving him a stern glance. 2 copper coins are already enough for a decent meal. The average salary in the city is only 10 copper coins per day. He is actually willing to give the children 20 copper coins for 6 hours of work. It's a generous offer, but I'm still worried about the children's safety. His product seems like it will become a hot commodity once it is released in the market, so there is a high chance that it will attract unwanted attention from shady characters." William was in a dilemma. Alaric's offer was very generous and he was even willing to offer financial support to the orphanage. The only thing that he was worried about was the safety of the children. "Can you guarantee their safety?" William stared deeply at Alaric. "I know what you are worried about, but you can rest assured. I will station 1 elite knight and 4 knights at the store. If there's a troublemaker, they will be taken care of right away." Alaric knew the value of the scented soap, so it was necessary to place some countermeasures. "An elite knight? You're willing to station someone that powerful in your shop?" William widened his eyes in disbelief. "That's right." Alaric nodded. He didn't want to repeat the tragedy that happened in his past life. To ensure the safety of Vince and the rest of the workers, a deterrent force had to be deployed. William was silent for a moment. After what seemed like an eternity, he looked deeply at Alaric. "We accept your offer, my lord, but if the children are harmed, we will take them back right away." Hearing this, Alaric joyfully agreed. "Great! I look forward to working with everyone." With that, Alaric finally secured the workforce he needed. All that was left was to teach the children how to make scented soap. "When will they start working?" William asked. "They still need to learn how to make the product. I will send someone to pick up the children tomorrow." You can also go with them if you want to know where they will be working. Suddenly, Rasmus asked with a cheeky smile, "My lord, are we also paid during the training?" Josephine immediately pulled him and forced a smile. "Please don't mind him, my lord. We didn't properly teach him manners, so he developed this kind of behavior." Alaric chuckled. "It's fine, just let him be. I like his attitude." Anyway, to answer your question, yes, the children will receive payment during the training. It's part of the job, so they will be properly compensated. However, I don't plan on letting you work at the shop, Rasmus. Huh? Why? Is it because of my attitude? Rasmus's face fell when he heard this. He was only a year away from becoming an adult, so he wanted to start earning some money. Josephine and William also stared at him curiously, wondering what this was all about. Alaric shook his head. "It's not about that. I have a better proposition for you, but you will need to get your guardian's approval." Rasmus looked confused. "I plan to bring some talented children to the estate and train them to become knights." There were plenty of talented individuals among the commoners, but because of the lack of opportunity, their potential was buried. In his past life, there were some people who had revealed their enormous potential after they were forced to join the Civil War. Unlike most people who struggled to control mana, they were able to control this energy with ease. They progressed faster than the others and quickly rose to power. If he could gather those people, Alaric would have enough manpower to stop the Civil War. That was his ultimate goal. He didn't want to go through that hell again. That war caused devastating damage to the empire and it brought misery to a lot of people. Rasmus felt his blood pumping when he heard this. It was his dream to become a soldier. As for becoming a knight, that was his lifelong goal. How could he not be excited when a chance to become one was presented to him? Rasmus stared at William with a pleading look. "Grandpa, please, I want to become a knight." Seeing him like this, William sighed helplessly. All right. Are you sure about this, Rasmus?" Alaric spoke with all seriousness. "Once you begin with the training, there is no turning back anymore. You will have less freedom and you will have to serve House Silversod." Josephine and William didn't say anything. They were Rasmus's guardians, but the final decision was still in his hands. You should think it over before you make a decision. Your choice will affect your future, so you should discuss it with your guardians. Alaric didn't want to force him. William and Josephine stared gratefully at him upon hearing his words. "I will take my leave first. You can give me your response tomorrow." Alaric stood up and bid them farewell. Watching the departing carriage, William patted Rasmus's shoulder. "You should follow your heart, Rasmus. This might be the opportunity that you have been waiting for. I know that you want to become a knight. House Silversod is a good choice and Lord Alaric seems like a good leader as well. I made a promise that I would protect everyone, but I barely know how to wield a sword. I hate how powerless I am. If I had the power, my brothers and sisters wouldn't have to suffer anymore. Grandpa, I have already made my decision." Chapter 7, Dragontail Fern. Alaric returned to House Silversword's territory after he visited the orphanage. The first thing he did upon his return was to gather the money he had saved up over the years. "This should be enough to pay the children for 2 weeks, but I still need more money to fulfill my promise to William." Alaric promised that he would donate funds to the orphanage. However, his savings were far from enough. He didn't want to use the household money since he had promised his father that he wouldn't touch it. It would be embarrassing if he went back on his words. He had to gather funds as quickly as possible. In his past life, there were rare items discovered by wanderers. Some of them were of great value and they even caused major upheavals when they were found. Alaric suddenly thought of one particular item found on the eastern side of Vale. It was a miracle herb called Dragontail Fern. It got its name from its hoop-like features that made it look like a miniature dragon tail from certain angles. This miracle herb was capable of tempering the human body, but this wasn't its most important function. Consuming this herb could also aid the knights in their mana training, speeding up their progress twofold. It was also because of this that this herb was sold at sky-high prices. The only problem was that it was so difficult to find them since they only grow in certain conditions. Alaric knew where he could find this herb, and it wasn't just a single stalk. From what he could remember, the number of dragontail fern found in that place was in the hundreds. If he could gather all the dragontail ferns from that place, he would have enough money to fund the orphanage for the next 3 years, and he would still be left with a decent amount for himself. However, there was a minor problem. That place was the home of a ferocious creature with a threat level classified as fatal. Monsters were graded based on their threat levels, the degree of danger they posed to the civilians. Fatal grade monsters were already capable of harnessing mana, and they also possessed intelligence far greater than normal animals. A normal warrior or even a knight apprentice would be helpless when faced with such a creature. Usually, a team of knights would be dispatched when a monster of the fatal grade was causing havoc. Alaric had to thoroughly prepare for his trip to that place. I need to bring more people with me. Although he had Galliner, who was an elite knight, he planned to bring more knights with him in case the information he had was wrong. His information about that place was only based on the rumors he had heard in his past life, so it was better to take some precautions. Alaric wore his battle armor and equipped the reinforced steel sword he got from Lucas as a gift. After making sure that he didn't miss anything, he stepped out of his room. "My lord, where are you headed to?" Elena was startled when she saw him in combat-ready attire. Looking at her worried expression, Alaric gently smiled at her. "I will hunt some wild animals for dinner." He didn't tell her the truth. Telling her would only make her needlessly worried. Elena looked around. After making sure that no one was there, she shyly grabbed his hand. "You must be careful out there, my lord. I heard from the knights that there's a fatal grade monster lurking outside the territory." Feeling her soft and warm hand, Alaric squeezed it gently. "Don't worry, I'm not going out alone. I will bring Galliner and a few guys with me." After reassuring her, he told her to stay close to his mother while he was gone. He didn't know when his uncle would return to the mansion, so it was better for her to stay with Maria for the time being. Elena would be safe as long as she was with her. After sending Elena to his mother, Alaric went to his father's study room. He needed Lucas's permission to mobilize the knights. He also didn't plan on keeping this from him. The knights were loyal to his father, so he wouldn't be able to hide the details of this trip. Since that's the case, he might as well tell him the truth. Soon, he arrived at his father's study room, which was located at the topmost floor of the mansion. He knocked on the door. "Come in." Lucas's stern voice echoed from inside the room. Alaric pushed the door open and stepped inside. He saw Lucas writing on a piece of paper, looking incredibly focused. Standing behind him was the old butler, Bastian, who bowed upon seeing that the visitor was Alaric. Noticing this, Lucas put down his pen and raised his head. When he realized that it was his son, his face broke into a smile. "Do you need anything from me?" Lucas pointed at the seat in front of his desk, gesturing for him to sit down. Alaric nodded to the old butler before he bowed to Lucas. He then took his seat. "Father, I heard of rumors that a dragontail fern was found in the eastern side of Vale. I would like to investigate the area to see if it's true." Hearing this, Lucas chuckled. "And here I thought it was something serious. You don't need my permission for this. You can go there if you want, but you need to be careful. There are reported sightings of monsters in that place, so you must exercise caution." "I know," Alaric nodded. "The reason I came here is because I need your permission to mobilize the knights." Lucas raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Why will you bring them there?" "Galliner should be able to handle the monsters there." "It's just for precaution." Alaric shook his head, thinking of a good excuse that wouldn't make his father suspicious. After all, we still haven't investigated the credibility of the rumors. "I would like to bring them there since there is a possibility that this is a trap," he added. Lucas nodded his head. "You have a point. The rumors you heard might have been intentionally spread by someone to attract the public's attention. Since that's the case, I will give you the authority to mobilize the knights, but..." How many do you plan to bring with you for this trip? Alaric raised his hand. I only need 3. The household had a total of 8 knights. 3 of them were stationed outside the territory, protecting the key businesses of the household. Only 5 were at the territory, waiting for their next missions. Lucas thought for a moment before he gave a nod of approval. All right, you can take this opportunity to sharpen your skills. You just became a knight and you still lacked practical experience in field operations. Whether the dragon tail fern exists or not, this will be a good learning experience for you. Yes, father. Lucas gave him a few more reminders before he sent him out. Chapter 8, Henry, Rigor, and Aldrin. Alaric gathered the knights in front of the mansion after getting his father's permission. The 5 knights curiously stared at Alaric, who was standing in front of them, wondering why he had gathered them. When they noticed his serious expression, they didn't dare joke around. Alaric quietly studied them one by one. These knights were from his father's generation, so they were incredibly loyal to him. When Lucas died in his past life, they even wanted to follow him in death. If it wasn't for Lucas's last words telling them to protect Alaric, they might have committed suicide when he took his final breath. These knights were mostly similar in strength and skills, but there was one particular knight who stood out from the rest. It was an older knight who seemed to be in his 50s. He had short, graying hair and visible wrinkles on his forehead. He wasn't that tall and was shorter than Alaric at around 180 centimeters. This man was Henry. He was the oldest knight serving under the Baron. He was also Alaric's sword instructor when the latter was still a young boy. Among the 5 knights, Henry was the most experienced, so his presence was necessary for the trip. For the last 2 spots, he already had someone in mind. He turned his head to a bald, middle-aged knight with a thick beard. He was as tall as Alaric, but his frame was bigger and he was also more muscular. The left side of his face had a tribal tattoo and he had piercings on his ears. This person was Rigor. Before he served as a knight for House Silvasad, he worked as a mercenary. He was a kind man, but he was cruel to his enemies. The last person that Alaric would bring was the youngest of the 5 knights. He was only in his late 20s, so his potential was enormous. This man's name was Aldrin. He was a bit shorter than Alaric at 189 centimeters. He had an ordinary face and tan skin, but he had a well-built physique. In his past life, Aldrin joined him in the battle between the Crown Prince and the Second Prince. At that time, he was already an elite knight. After observing them, Alaric finally spoke. 3 of you will be coming with me for a trip to the eastern side of Vale. I heard some rumors that a dragon tail fern was found there. Upon hearing his words, their eyes flashed with a glimmer of surprise. They were aware of how valuable that herb was. For this trip, I will bring Henry, Rigor, and Aldrin. The faces of the 3 knights whose names were called suddenly turned serious. The place where the dragon tail fern was said to be found is in a cave at the end of the Red Toad Gorge. According to the rumors, there is a fatal grade monster inside the cave. Our objective this time is to investigate the authenticity of the rumors, and if it's proven to be true, we must get our hands on those dragon tail ferns. There was a moment of silence before someone spoke. My lord, if it's just a fatal grade monster, bringing Sir Galliner should be enough. Is there a reason why you are bringing us for the trip? Henry asked, his eyebrows furrowed. A fatal grade monster was stronger than common knights, but it would be powerless against an experienced elite knight. They knew that Galliner wasn't just a normal elite knight. Even the Baron was full of praise for him. Alaric stared at the old knight and replied, "You are right. Galliner is strong enough to handle a fatal grade monster. However, we still don't know if there is only one monster inside the cave. Bringing you 3 is just for precaution." Hearing this, Henry nodded in understanding. I see. I was thoughtless. Alaric waved his hand. You 3 should prepare your equipment. We will depart as soon as you're ready. Yes, my lord. The 3 chosen knights responded in unison. As for the two who weren't chosen, Alaric told them not to spread rumors about the trip before sending them away. Less than 30 minutes later, the three knights returned, already in their full gear. Henry wore leather armor with a metal breastplate. His sword was tied to his waist, and he also brought a small bag filled with rations and medicine. Meanwhile, Rigger, who boasted strong physical strength, was in full-body heavy steel armor. He had a diamond-shaped steel shield strapped on his back and his sword was tied to his waist. On the other hand, Aldrin looked relatively normal compared to them. He wore a simple leather armor that wouldn't hinder his speed and movements. He was holding a spear in his right hand and he had his short sword strapped firmly on his back. "We are ready to go, my lord," Henry reported after inspecting their equipment. Alaric nodded. "All right, let's go." Everyone jumped on their respective mounts, which were a special breed of war horses called wine horse. And like ordinary horses, these horses were stronger and more agile, hence their name. Among them, Rigger's war horse was the biggest. It was measured at more than 25 hands and weighed over 4,000 pounds. Horses are measured in hands. This has been the traditional method of measuring the horses even before Astania was established. One hand is equal to 4 inches, which is the average span of a human's thumb and outstretched fingers. Even with Rigger's massive weight, which was further pronounced by his heavy armor, his wine horse didn't seem to be greatly affected. "You should lose some weight, man. Don't you feel pity for your horse?" Henry shook his head when he heard Rigger's horse neighing in protest. Rigger gave the old knight a sidelong glance before he snorted in response. "Mind your own business, old man." Aldrin chuckled when he heard their conversation. Just as they were about to leave, a cute voice suddenly drifted into their ears. "My lord, you must be careful out there." Feeling surprised, everyone turned their heads. Standing at the mansion's main door was Elena. She looked visibly embarrassed when she sensed everyone looking at her. Alaric didn't expect this shy girl to say such things in front of the other knights. "Don't worry, Nana. I will be back soon," he promised as he gave her a reassuring smile. Hearing him call her Nana in the presence of other people made Elena's cheeks flush. She harumphed and stomped her foot before she sprinted inside the mansion with an abashed look. Seeing this, Alaric and the knights laughed. Chapter 9. Heading to the Red Toad Gorge. House Silversword's estate was located at the heart of a small town called North Pinetown, a place further south of Vale. Before the Baron became the lord of the town, it was just a small village with a few dozen families who earned their living from farming and hunting wild animals. It was only when House Silversword was established that this place was developed into a town and gained some semblance of prosperity. Now North Pinetown has over 6,000 residents. When Alaric's group passed by the town's central square, they encountered some residents who greeted them enthusiastically. These people respected the Baron and House Silversword. They believed that it was because of the presence of the Baron and the household that North Pinetown managed to grow into what it is now. To the residents' enthusiastic greetings, Alaric simply smiled and waved his hand. They were in a hurry, so they didn't linger in the town to chat with the residents. Approximately 1,000 meters outside North Pinetown was the Evergreen Forest. It was a forest filled with tall evergreens that towered above the ground. Alaric and the knights were familiar with the forest since it was their hunting ground. No one spoke along the way, and their faces turned increasingly serious the moment they stepped inside the forest. Thin rays of sunlight filtered through the dense foliage, lighting up the forest with an ethereal glow. From here, the group had to follow a narrow path which was just barely enough for a carriage to pass through. This trail was a shortcut that led to the eastern side of Vale. It was a rarely used route, so the road was uneven. However, to the trained horses, this jagged path was just like a walk in the park, not troubling them in the slightest. The reason why this particular trail was rarely used was because of the presence of monsters. They were creatures more attuned to mana, making them more powerful than normal wild animals. With the presence of these creatures, only a few brave residents and groups of hunters dared to travel here from time to time. Following this narrow trail, one would soon hear the violent splashes of a nearby river. It was the main source of fresh water in North Pine Town, a medium-sized river called Butterfly Creek. This river was connected to a huge lake called Silent Lake, which was further east of the evergreen forest. Alaric's group had to pass through the periphery of this lake. They had to be careful here since the lake was inhabited by powerful predators like the ironback crocodile and the gold-spotted white anaconda. Both monsters were at the fatal grade during maturity. The good thing was that they rarely attack humans since they mostly stay in the lake. With an experienced knight like Henry leading the group, they didn't encounter any of the said monsters when they passed by the side of the lake. By the time they arrived at the Red Toad Gorge, 2 hours had gone by and the sky had already turned crimson with the sun about to set. "We're here, my lord," Henry reported while observing the shallow stream in between the steep, rocky hills. Alaric nodded his head, feeling a mixture of nervousness and anticipation at what they would find in the cave. Even now, he was still uncertain about what was inside the cave. Were there really dragon tail ferns inside? If there was none, he would be disappointed. He erased the random thoughts from his mind. Let's go. The cave is at the opposite end of the gorge. Hearing his words, Henry nodded and squeezed his legs, urging his horse to move forward. Closely following behind him were Alaric and Galliner, while Rieger and Aldrin were at the rear, cautiously eyeing the surrounding landscape with their dominant hand resting on the handle of their weapon. If they sensed any form of danger, they were ready to cover Alaric and protect him from harm. The sound of the horses' footsteps as they stepped on the shallow stream was the only sound that they could hear. The surroundings were eerily quiet, making the group feel a bit tense. At this moment, the roar of a beast suddenly broke the silence. Alaric and the knights turned their heads simultaneously in the same direction. The loud roar came from the end of the gorge. "It must be from the cave," Aldrin exclaimed with a stern look. That beast-like cry sent a chill down his spine. His instincts were telling him that whatever it was definitely no ordinary creature. "My lord, I think the monster inside the cave is not your average fatal grade beast," Henry remarked with a grim look after hearing the beast's roar. Alaric nodded. According to the rumors he had heard from his past life, the beast living inside the cave was a spiked grizzly bear. It was a wild beast bigger than the average bear and it had sharp spikes on its back. "It sounds like the cry of a spiked grizzly bear," Rieger suddenly said with his eyebrows furrowed. Hearing this, Alaric was a bit surprised. He could actually identify the monster based on its sound. "What makes you so sure, Sir Rieger?" Aldrin asked. Rieger shook his head. The gloomy look flashed in his eyes as if he had remembered a dark past. "I had a few encounters with them when I was still a mercenary." Aldrin no longer asked when he saw the former mercenary's expression. Even Henry, who usually joked with him, didn't say anything. Rieger is right. Inside the cave is a spiked grizzly bear. "I'm just not sure how many of them are inside," Alaric confirmed this. A gloomy atmosphere cast over them as soon as they heard Alaric's confirmation. Spiked grizzly bears were difficult to handle. They have thick hides that are almost impenetrable to blades. They also possessed overwhelming physical strength that could even tear apart a knight. However, the most fearsome feature of these creatures was the sharp spikes on their back. Henry turned his head to Galliner and asked with a stern voice, "Sir Galliner, can you handle an adult spiked grizzly bear?" Everyone looked at the tall figure. He was the only elite knight in the group, so they would have to rely on him to take care of the monster. Facing everyone's scrutinizing eyes, Galliner remained calm as he nodded his head. "If it's just alone, I don't have any problem dealing with it." The knights were relieved by his words. They felt comforted that Alaric brought Galliner on this trip. They would have been powerless on their own. Even a veteran knight like Henry wasn't confident enough to fight against a creature like the spiked grizzly bear. "From this point forward, keep your eyes peeled," Alaric reminded them. "Yes, my lord." Chapter 10, Fighting the Spiked Grizzly Bear. The horses were getting restless as they moved closer to the cave. They made faint snorting noises and their bodies tensed up. "It looks like we have to walk by ourselves from this point on." Alaric gave a hand signal, telling everyone to dismount. The entrance of the cave was narrow and the pathway was filled with sharp rocks that weren't ideal for the horses so leaving them outside was the best option. As soon as they stepped inside the cave, the temperature noticeably went up. The smell of the air inside reminded Alaric of a musty abandoned house. There was also this distinctive smell of urine mixed within, making him scrunch his nose. There was no lighting inside, so everything was dark. "Light up the torch," Alaric whispered. Aldrin, who was holding the torch, nodded and lit up the torch. The flickering flame lit up the cave and revealed what was inside. Sharp stalactites hung above them with pointed tips dripping with water. The walls near the entrance of the cave were covered in green moss, giving it an ancient and untouched impression. The group carefully treaded the cave. This time, Gallagher was positioned at the front. The elite knight's eyes were narrowed into slits as he warily observed the dark path ahead. Meanwhile, Alaric's hand was already on the hilt of his sword. His feet were positioned in a way that he could easily react to any situation. This was a habit he had formed during his days as a soldier under the Crown Prince. At that time, his life was always hanging by a thread. He was in a constant state of danger that he had unconsciously created this habit. At this moment, a violent roar shook the cave and made the group flinch. They were a bit startled by the sudden noise. Gallagher slowly took out his weapon, a broadsword that was 5 foot long and a width of about 2 feet. From a glance, it looked like a huge chunk of metal. He then made a series of hand gestures, informing the group that he had sensed the presence of the creature. "Aldrin, give me the torch." Alaric stretched out his hand. Aldrin didn't know why he asked for the torch, but he handed it to him without asking any questions. Once he got the torch, Alaric made a throwing motion, aiming for the direction that was pointed by Gallagher before throwing it. Everyone watched in surprise as the torch flew across the other side of the cave and revealed the huge creature hiding in the darkness. The torch struck the beast's body before it fell to the ground. The beast opened its huge mouth and issued another ear-piercing roar. "Roar! Prepare for battle!" Alaric shouted. "Yes, my lord," everyone answered in unison, their eyes flashing with seriousness. "It's indeed a spiked grizzly bear. From its size, it looks like an adult male." Alaric furrowed his eyebrows as he took in a deep breath. With his current strength, his sword wouldn't be able to penetrate deeply into the beast's skin even if he used all his might. His battle experience would be useless here because of the overwhelming difference in strength. The spiked grizzly bear didn't immediately attack them. It sized them up as if it was studying its prey. "When I count to 3, we will attack the bear," Alaric muttered. His eyes narrowed as he firmly gripped his sword. Everyone nodded silently as they adjusted their posture. 1. The air seemed to grow heavy as Alaric started his countdown. 2. Everyone tightened their muscles in preparation. 3. As soon as Alaric's voice fell, the group moved simultaneously, lunging at the bear in different directions. Startled by their sudden attack, the spiked grizzly bear was half a second slower to react. Gallagher took this opportunity to swing his massive broadsword in a diagonal cut that made the air produce a keening sound. Swoosh! The bear was struck by his sword, leaving a deep wound on its chest that made the bear emit a pained sound. GRR! The others were a bit slower, but their attacks also connected, creating small wounds on the beast's huge body. "We are barely wounding it." Only Gallagher's attack was able to deal substantial damage. Alaric frowned. The huge bear was furious after being wounded. It pounced at the nearest person, which was Henry, and swiped its sharp claws at the old knight. Seeing this, Henry immediately lifted his sword to deflect its claws while moving away from its range. What a strong monster! Now that the bear was preoccupied with Henry, Gallagher sent another attack, stabbing the creature's neck with the pointed edge of his sword. The bear didn't die immediately after having its neck stabbed with the broadsword. It wobbled and walked a few more steps before it fell to the ground with a heavy thud. "Move away! Be careful with its spikes," Rigger shouted at the group as he pulled Alaric to the ground and lifted his shield to cover him. The knights quickly dove to the ground when they heard his words. Just then, the sharp spikes on the bear's back suddenly shoot out in all directions. Sue! 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 One of the spikes missed Aldrin by a few inches. A little bit more and his stomach would have been punctured. Is everyone all right? Henry rose to his feet and looked around. Alaric was about to respond when he felt something warm dripping by his face. Feeling alarmed, he hurriedly grabbed Rigger and saw a spike sticking on the latter's left shoulder. Rigger, you're injured. Arg! Rigger dropped his shield and groaned in pain. Are you all right, my lord? How can you ask me that when you're the one who is injured? Alaric helped him carefully remove his armor. He then grabbed his medicine kit and took out some bandages and herbs. Alaric handed a cloth to Rigger and said, "Bite through it. I will make it quick." Rigger nodded and put the cloth in his mouth. Sweat trickled down his face. With a quick pull, Alaric removed the spike. A pained groan leaked out of Rigger's mouth, who was biting on the cloth. After pulling out the spike, Alaric chewed the herbs and spat it out. He then smeared the herb paste on the open wound before wrapping it tightly with bandages. The knights watched Alaric's practice movements with surprise. His hands moved like he had done this over 100 times in the past. Not even a minute had passed when he completed the first aid. Thanks, Alaric patted Rigger's injured shoulder, which made the latter hiss in pain. Chapter 11. Inside the Cavern. Henry squatted down and patted Rigger's shoulder with a grin. Good job, fat ass. Arg! Damn you, old man! Rigger cussed out. After making sure that he was all right, Alaric instructed the rest to inspect the body of the spiked grizzly bear. Monsters that possessed mana could form a special type of crystal near their heart, the beast's soul crystal. It contained the purest energy of the monster, which was beneficial to the knights. Upon absorption, their training speed would increase dramatically. My lord, this guy has a beast soul crystal. Aldrin exclaimed after he dug out a small brown crystal in the beast's chest. Alaric nodded. Keep it first. We will deal with it once we return to the mansion. Yes, my lord. Aldrin put the crystal inside a sack and tied it carefully to his waist. Rigger, can you walk? Alaric turned his head at the former mercenary. Even with a face full of sweat and the stabbing pain in his shoulder, Rigger still managed to smirk. This little bit of injury is nothing, my lord. I will be fine. Look at you acting so tough, Henry scoffed, staring at him disdainfully. Rigger ignored the old man and went to grab his shield. He then tied it on his back. He couldn't lift it anymore since he could barely move his left arm, but he could make use of it to protect his back. Seeing this, Henry clicked his tongue. Don't exert yourself. Your wound might worsen if you move excessively, Alaric reminded him. Yes, my lord. Rigger nodded. It turned out that they had yet to reach the end of the tunnel. They had only arrived at an intersection that led deeper into the cave. Mark our path. There might be more intersections ahead, Alaric instructed. Hearing this, the knights immediately carved out markings on the wall using their swords. As they went deeper, they arrived at an intersection with 4 different paths. Where should we go, my lord? Henry asked for his opinion. Alaric furrowed his eyebrows and thought for a moment. We can move separately, but doing this will pose a greater risk. One of us might end up encountering another monster. It seems like the best option here is to stick together. Our search will be slow, but we will be safer as a group. As he thought of this, Alaric randomly pointed a path. Let's move that way as a group. No one questioned his decision. They probably thought that moving separately would be dangerous given their recent encounter with the spiked grizzly bear. Who knows what kind of monsters were hiding within the cave? The group followed the path, but they soon reached a dead end. Let's search the other 3 pathways, Alaric muttered calmly. The group acknowledged his command and silently traced back their trail by following the markings they made on the wall. Soon, the group returned to the 4 intersections and entered another route. However, this path was still a dead end, so they returned once more to choose a different route for the 3rd time. Finally, on their 3rd try, they discovered a large cavern at the end of the pathway. The group encountered more creatures, but they were only wild animals with no mana. As they stepped inside the cavern, they saw a crystal clear pond in the middle. It was so clear that they could see the aquatic animals swimming in the water. Whoa! This place is huge, Aldrin's voice echoed. My lord, look, Henry suddenly exclaimed while pointing in a certain direction. Alaric and the others immediately followed his gaze. And there it was, the very herb that they were looking for, the dragon-tail fern. Furthermore, there wasn't just a single stalk, but dozens or probably even hundreds of them. Just as Alaric was about to say something, Galliner suddenly stepped forward and looked deeply at the pond. Hold on. There's something strong in the pond. Everyone narrowed their eyes, their hands slowly reaching out to their weapons. At this moment, ripples appeared on the calm surface of the pond. In the next moment, a reptilian creature that looked like a mix between a crocodile and a snake emerged. It glared at them and emitted a sharp hissing sound as if telling them not to come closer. Isn't that an ironback crocodile? Henry muttered upon seeing the creature. The monster was over 30 feet long and its back had black scales that were as tough as iron. It smacked its long whip-like tail on the ground, an intimidation tactic that it always used on its enemies. Ironback crocodiles were common in the Silent Lake, but they rarely ventured out to other places, so the group was surprised to see one here. Not to mention that this one in particular was an adult ironback crocodile, a fatal-grade monster. That one is weaker than the spiked grizzly bear, but you guys must be careful with its tail. Getting hit by that would feel like a direct hit from a sledgehammer, Alaric warned them. Yes, my lord. Aldrin, you are the fastest in the group, so you must draw its attention. The rest will wait for my signal to attack. Alaric issued a series of commands. Yes, my lord, everyone answered in unison. Go! Aldrin rushed out with a spear in his hand. I'm coming, big lizard, he yelled in provocation. The ironback crocodile's territorial instincts kicked in when it saw Aldrin charging towards it. The beast growled and lunged at him, crawling with surprisingly quick speed. When Aldrin reached its range, the beast abruptly stopped and lashed its tail at him. Swish! Aldrin jumped and rolled to the side, expertly avoiding its tail. As soon as the beast turned around, Alaric motioned with his hand. The knights immediately rushed out, brandishing their weapons with unstoppable precision. In just the blink of an eye, they skewered the beast with their swords. The ironback crocodile flailed for a few seconds before its movements faltered. The knights only pulled their swords when it was no longer moving. Alaric nodded to Aldrin and said, Check if it's still alive. Yes, my lord. Aldrin carefully approached the body of the beast and prodded it with the tip of his spear. He then stabbed its head to make sure that it was dead. Good work, everyone. Aldrin, go and check if it has a beast soul crystal. The rest of you, collect the dragon tail ferns. Alaric instructed. Everything is going smoothly. Good thing we have Galliner here. This trip would have gone differently without Galliner. Having an elite knight made things easier for them. Chapter 12, Bountiful Spoils. Too bad we didn't get a beast soul crystal from it. Alaric shook his head, feeling regretful that there was no beast soul crystal in the ironback crocodile's carcass. Not all fatal-grade monsters possessed a beast soul crystal. They were only lucky enough to get one from the spiked grizzly bear. The group went to dig up all the dragon tail ferns inside the cavern. In the end, they managed to collect over 700 stalks of dragon tail ferns. Alaric was over the moon. Each stock was worth 15 gold coins in the market, and sometimes it even goes beyond 20 gold coins depending on the supply and the demand. Everything is roughly worth around 14,000 gold coins. With that much money, not to mention 3 years, I can even fund the orphanage for the next 100 years. He had underestimated the number of dragon tail ferns they could find inside the cave. It seems like the information from my past life was either wrong or it was manipulated. He thought to himself. From what he remembered, it was mentioned that there were only a few dozen stalks of dragon tail ferns inside this cave. However, this was no longer any of his concerns. Good job, everyone. But before we go back home, allow me to say a few reminders first. Everyone gathered in front of him, waiting for him to say his piece with serious faces. When he saw that he had gathered their attention, Alaric spoke. Whatever happened inside this place must remain a secret. The value of the things we found here could cause a storm, not just in Vale, but in the entire empire. At this point, his face turned grave as he continued. We might even be targeted if this information ever spreads. Their faces changed upon hearing his words. Dragontail fern was an important resource for knights. Just one stalk could help them increase the speed at which they gather mana. What more if they had 700 of such herbs? They could already imagine the turmoil it would cause once the news spread. Just the thought of it made them realize the gravity of the situation. For the safety of House Silvasad, please keep this a secret. Never tell this to anyone, not even to your family or your closest friends. Do you understand? Alaric warned them with a stern look. Yes, my lord, the knights replied in unison, their faces looking incredibly serious. Good, Alaric nodded, pleased with their response. Let's go home. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It was already past midnight when they returned to North Pine Town. Some residents who were still awake went pale with fright at the sight of the two huge beast carcasses being pulled by the makeshift wagons. Oh my God! What kind of monsters did Lord Alaric and the knights bring back? Did they hunt those monsters down in the evergreen forest? I'm never going back to that place again. One of the knights seems to be injured. It must have been a tough battle. The townsfolk discussed animatedly amongst themselves. No one dared to approach Alaric and the knights, afraid that the two carcasses might somehow come back to life and attack them. Soon, the group finally arrived at the estate. News about their return immediately reached the ears of the Baron and the Madam, who both came out of their chamber to check on their son's well-being. Elena also followed them, her face painted with anxiety. When they saw Rieger, whose upper body was wrapped in bandages, they furrowed their eyebrows. Elena craned her neck to look for Alaric's figure. A moment later, she finally caught sight of his familiar figure, making her breathe a sigh of relief. The Baron and the Madam also looked visibly relieved that he was unharmed. What happened out there? Why do you guys look so beat? The Madam approached her son and gently grabbed his arm, her face filled with concern. Alaric smiled apologetically at her as he squeezed her hand. I'm sorry for making you worried, Mother. Maria shook her head and forced out a smile. It's all right. She was the wife of the Baron, who was known as the Shield of the North, and she was also aware that her son, Alaric, would follow in his father's footsteps to carry the banner of House Silvasad. The lives of the father and son were destined to be filled with war and bloodshed, so she had already prepared her heart for what was to come, no matter how difficult it was for her. This was her duty as the madam of the household. She must be firm and strong no matter what happens. Alaric walked towards Lucas and bowed to him. Father, I have returned from my trip. Lucas nodded his head with a calm look. MN. Good job. His gaze then moved to the two carcasses and the sacks on the wagons. It seems like your trip was quite fruitful. Alaric grinned upon hearing this. Yes, Father. We accomplished our goal, and we even got some extra rewards. Although we encountered some challenges, we managed to overcome them by virtue of our efforts and teamwork. I see. That's good to hear. Lucas raised his eyebrows. He was aware that his son's goal was to search for dragon-tail ferns. I will tell you the details later. Let's go inside first. Alaric gave him a knowing look. Lucas understood his intentions and nodded. All right, let's head in. Alaric gave a signal to Henry and the others and said, bring in the items. As for the carcasses, let the others deal with them. Yes, my lord, the knights replied. Lucas narrowed his eyes as he looked at the sacks they were carrying. He was curious, but he said nothing. He knew that Alaric would explain things to him soon. As soon as they walked inside the mansion, Alaric took the chance to grab Elena's hand, gently squeezing it while giving her a warm smile. Did you wait for me? He asked with a hint of teasing in his voice. Elena was flustered by his touch. She tried to pull out her hand, but she couldn't break free from his grip. She shyly looked around to see if the others had noticed anything. When she saw the knights pretending to be blind, she lowered her head in embarrassment. Chapter 13. Lucas's Trust and Alaric's Ambition. Lucas brought them to his study room. As soon as everyone took their seats, Lucas muttered, his eyes sweeping over, eyeing everyone like a hawk watching its prey. "Now tell me what happened on your trip." The knights glanced at Alaric in unison. The matter was too big for them to say it themselves, so they unanimously agreed to let him speak. This was also Alaric's decision. When he sensed their gazes, he looked at his father and replied, "Just as I had told you, Father, I brought the knights to the Red Toad Gorge to search for the cave mentioned in the rumors." Lucas glanced over at the knights and saw them nodding their heads. Alaric continued, "We went inside the cave to investigate the rumors about the dragon-tail fern. There, we encountered an adult spiked grizzly bear." Hearing this, Lucas furrowed his eyebrows, while Maria gasped in shock. On the other hand, Elena, who didn't know anything about monsters, tilted her head in confusion. Alaric's voice turned serious at this point. "We managed to kill the spiked grizzly bear, so Rigger was injured in that battle to protect me." When he mentioned this, Maria sent Rigger a grateful look. "We found this in the body of the beast." Alaric took out the beast's soul crystal of the spiked grizzly bear and handed it to his father. Lucas inspected the beast's soul crystal before he handed it back to Alaric. Only powerful monsters can produce beast soul crystals. "That spiked grizzly bear must have been a tough beast," he remarked. "That's right," Alaric nodded. "If Sir Galaner wasn't with us, it would have been a dangerous battle." Hearing this, the knights nodded in agreement. As prideful as they were, they couldn't deny that it was Galaner who did the most damage to the spiked grizzly bear. Their weapons couldn't even penetrate deeply into its sturdy body. Lucas wasn't surprised by this. Galaner was an elite knight, so it wasn't that difficult for someone like him to kill a fatal grade monster. As we headed deeper into the cave, we found a cavern with a crystal clear pond in the middle. Alaric explained what they had seen in the cavern, including the iron-backed crocodile that was living in the pond. He also mentioned the presence of the dragon-tail ferns. At this point, Lucas could no longer hide his surprise. "You really found the dragon-tail ferns?" He stared at Alaric in disbelief. Alaric smiled and made a gesture with his hand. "Knights, please show the Patriarch what we have collected in the cavern." "Yes, my lord." The knights opened the sacks and revealed the contents. It's indeed the dragon-tail fern. Lucas stood up from his seat to get a clearer look at the herbs. Maria and Elena also went to take a closer look. "Just how many dragon-tail ferns did you collect from that cavern?" Maria was shocked to see so many stalks inside the sacks. "More than 700, Alaric replied with a grin. "What?" Maria covered her mouth in disbelief. She mentally calculated the total value of the herbs inside the sacks, and the result almost made her faint from shock. Lucas managed to maintain his composure after a moment of surprise. "What do you plan to do with these herbs?" He glanced at his son. "Recently, I made a promise with someone." Alaric told them about his deal with the people from the orphanage. "I see having those kids work on your product would have a lesser risk of having your recipe getting leaked." That was a good decision. Maria, who has a great mind for business, immediately grasped his thoughts. "I learned it from you, Mother." Alaric chuckled. Suddenly, Lucas spoke. "Funding the orphanage would make those kids loyal to you. But are you sure about training them to become knights?" "Not everyone has the aptitude to become a knight." Hearing this, Alaric nodded. "I understand that, Father. However, there are plenty of knights who came from humble origins. They managed to overcome their lack of status and resources to become knights. What would happen if we gave them the opportunity and the resources? The kids with potential would definitely reveal themselves, and with the help that we provided them, they will be grateful and swear their loyalty to House Silvasald." Lucas narrowed his eyes. He could sense his son's overwhelming ambition, but it wasn't the kind of ambition that would bring harm to others. He could feel something more profound in the depths of Alaric's eyes. Alaric had always been a normal kid with no ambition to speak. His potential was above average and his swordsmanship talent was ordinary. He wondered what made his son change in just a short amount of time. What is this kid hiding from me? It looks like you have already planned things. In that case, I will give you full authority in handling these dragon tail ferns. Whatever you do with them will be your responsibility. Just don't do something that will make you regret in the future. My son Lucas patted Alaric's shoulder while staring deeply at him. Alaric was overwhelmed by his father's trust. He was already prepared to concede some of the herbs. Who would have thought that he would actually let him take everything? I will do my best not to disappoint you, father. I promise that everything I will do is for the sake of House Silvasad. Alaric lowered his head. That makes me feel relieved. Lucas's expression softened. Handling those herbs on your own might be difficult. If you need some advice, just ask for your mother's help. She is the best when it comes to anything related to money. Lucas didn't forget to remind him. Yes, father. Good? Lucas's gaze swept over, glancing at every individual inside the room. This matter must not be spread to anyone. Am I clear? Yes, my lord. Everyone lowered their heads nervously upon sensing the Baron's stern gaze. Lucas dismissed the knights and chatted some more with Alaric. After almost an hour, Alaric was finally sent away with Elena. My lord, I'm glad that you're all right. Elena's shy voice drifted into his ears. Were you worried about me? Alaric held her small hand and squeezed it gently. Feeling embarrassed by his direct stare, Elena looked away from him and hummed in response, Amen. I'm sorry for making you worried, Nana. It's okay. I promised to hunt some animals for dinner, but you guys have already eaten. Why don't we cook some meat from the bear we hunted? Elena lifted her head in surprise. But that isn't a normal bear, but a fatal grade monster. How could a servant like me eat such valuable meat? How could you say that, Nana? Haven't you heard from my mother that you will soon be married to me? Alaric sent her a teasing look. H.R. W. What? Are you saying, my lord? The girl was flustered and she timidly averted her gaze, her cheeks blushing due to embarrassment. Ha ha ha. You're so cute when you're embarrassed, Nana. Alaric stared at her with undisguised fondness. I will never let anyone hurt you again, Elena, and I promise that I will make the man who hurt you regret being born in this world. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The next day, Alaric headed to the orphanage with Galliner and Harris. The latter was one of his mother's trusted servants, a man talented in business management. He specifically asked his mother to lend him this man. Now that I have Harris, dealing with the dragon tail ferns would no longer be an issue. Although he had learned a few things from his mother, he was still a beginner in business. He would only make careless mistakes if he dealt with them on his own. My lord, we are here, the coachman said. You can come with me, Harris. Alaric looked at the middle-aged man sitting on the seat in front of him. He was wearing a monocle and his graying hair was combed neatly to the side, giving him a clean look. Harris bowed his head. Yes, my lord. Stay here, Galliner. Alaric gestured for him to stay when he noticed that Galliner was intending to follow them. Galliner immediately stepped back. As you wish, my lord. Harris, let's go. I'll introduce you to the people here. Chapter 14. Settling the tasks. I brought Harris here since I will need someone to help me manage the operations in the orphanage. I will be busy for the next few months with my training, so I won't have the time to take care of the things here. Alaric observed from the side as Harris proceeded with the official contract signing with William, who served as the representative for the orphanage. Things went smoothly since they had already discussed the situation beforehand. We will send the funds over every first day of the month. Thank you for your cooperation, Sir William. Harris extended his hand while smiling lightly. The old man was a bit emotional when he shook hands with him. We should be the ones thanking you. He then turned his head to Alaric and bowed deeply. Thank you, my lord. With your monetary assistance, the children's basic needs will finally be met. I cannot thank you enough. I'm only doing what I promised to do. Alaric smiled. Josephine and Rasmus, who were observing from the sidelines, couldn't conceal their excitement. Money was their #1 problem, but it has been taken care of just like that. They still couldn't believe it. For the next matter, can you let me talk with Rasmus privately? Hearing this, William nodded, and it looked like he was already prepared for this. Of course, my lord. With the exception of Rasmus, everyone left. Have you made a decision? Alaric asked while staring deeply at Rasmus. Rasmus took a deep breath. His gaze was firm and full of determination. Yes, my lord, I have already thought it over. I always wanted to become strong enough to protect my family. Just recently, I almost lost my sisters because of how pathetically weak I am. If it weren't for grandfather, my sisters would have already been. He clenched his fists as fury flashed in his eyes. I wish to follow you, my lord. I want to become a knight and become strong enough to give my family a safe environment to live in. Please grant my wish. His voice echoed with strong determination. Alaric's lips curved upwards. That's right. This is the Rasmus that I know. A man who seeks strength to protect his family. That's who you are, my friend. Good? Starting today, you will follow me back to North Pine Town. We will begin with your training as soon as we are done with the tasks here. Pack your stuff and prepare to depart. Yes, my lord. Rasmus nodded, turned around, and left. With this, I have gained myself a companion with a limitless future. Alaric stared at the sky through the window. This is just the start. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The children who were assigned to work were taken to the workshop to be trained. William accompanied them on the trip to familiarize himself with the working environment of the children. He also followed them there to ascertain whether Alaric was truthful with his words. Inside the scented soap workshop. How is it, Sir William? How do you feel about the children's job? Alaric stared at the old man who was observing the job training of the children. William knitted his eyebrows. The environment here is good and the children are even given free meals. But can they really do well in their job? What if they make a lot of mistakes? Alaric smiled lightly. Making mistakes is normal. It's a sign that they are willing to learn. Just give them some time and they will eventually be familiar with their tasks. By then, things will be a lot easier for them. That's true. I can rest easy knowing that they are working for you, my lord. William smiled, looking more relaxed than ever. After dealing with the manpower problem at the workshop, Alaric brought Harris to the market to sell some of their dragon tail ferns. They didn't sell the herbs in large volumes but sold them in batches to different stores. According to Harris, it was to prevent anyone from thinking that they had a large supply of dragon tail ferns. Alaric learned a lot about the business trade with his help. He also realized during this trip that he wasn't cut out for this kind of thing. On their way back to North Pine Town, Alaric was in deep thought. It looks like I need to find someone who can help me manage my business. Vince is a smart man, but he isn't good at dealing with people. It might not be good to make him manage everything on his own. I need someone capable. The first person that came to his mind was Harris. Unfortunately, the guy was responsible for most of the household's businesses, so it might be too much to leave everything in his hands. As he thought of this, someone's face suddenly came to his mind. That's right. How could I forget you? He felt a wave of sorrow and guilt when he recalled this person. No, there should be other choices. I still can't face her. In his past life, there was a woman who helped him stabilize House Silvesod, which was on the verge of collapsing. It was because of her efforts that the household managed to get back on its feet. She was a woman talented in business just like his mother, Maria. Alaric rubbed his temples and tried to remove her from his mind. Is there anything wrong, my lord? You don't look well, Rasmus muttered with concern when he saw Alaric's troubled face. It's nothing. I just thought about something unpleasant. Alaric forced out a smile. Rasmus no longer said anything after hearing his response. Soon, they finally arrived at North Pine Town. So this is the domain of House Silvesod. The town looks better than I expected. Rasmus observed the townspeople and noticed that everyone looked happy. There were also no beggars on the streets, and there were even children playing outside with no fear for their safety. It was an environment that was completely different from Vale, where all sorts of people had gathered. Household Silvasad is truly good to their people. These were his thoughts on his first visit to North Pine Town. Chapter 15. Charles Silvasad. 8th day of September, year 208 of the Estanian calendar. Alaric had just completed his daily mission. He opened his character profile to check his progress. Alaric Silvasad 90 XP, 6/500ths. Potential B. Traits: horseback riding D, swordsmanship SSS, close combat D, archery F, hunting E, tracking F. Strength 28+, stamina 28+, agility 25+, vitality 27+, endurance 27+, mana 13+, battle points 360, stat points 35. Requirements for next advancement: 500 EXP, 100 in all attributes, and 5,000 battle points. If I continue with this pace, I should be able to advance to the realm of Elite Knight in less than 2 years. Having the ability to see my progress is definitely convenient. Alaric smiled as he closed his character profile. He then went to observe Rasmus, who was receiving training from Henry. Rasmus was a sword user in his past life, so having him train with Henry was the best choice. The old knight might not be a genius in mana control, but he was an expert in using the sword. Just in pure sword technique alone, he might even be better than House Silver Sword's commander of the knights, who was already in the realm of Elite Knight. While he was observing the training, he saw Elena running towards him with a flustered look on her face. "My lord," she called out. "Why are you in such a hurry?" "Did something happen?" Alaric raised an eyebrow. Elena grabbed his hand nervously and said, "Lord Charles is here, my lord." When Alaric heard this name from her mouth, his eyes flashed with imperceptible rage. Charles Silvasad was the younger brother of Lucas Silvasad, which makes him Alaric's uncle, the very person that he hated the most. He must have come here for the party that will be held tomorrow. But why did he come a day earlier? What is his motive? Alaric frowned as he thought deeply. "Elena, you must stay close to Galliner for the time being. He will protect you." Elena stared at him in surprise, wondering if she had heard him wrong. "How? Why do I have to stay close to Sir Galliner inside the estate?" Alaric gently caressed her face and put on a smile. "Just listen to me." "Fine, but Sir Galliner is a bit scary," she muttered timidly. "You will be fine. You can trust Galliner. He may look like that, but he is a good person." "Elena, sometimes appearance can be deceiving. A person can look good, but is actually evil inside. You must not judge someone based on how they look," Alaric reminded her with a stern gaze. Although he knew about the future, he couldn't be certain that things would play out according to what he knew. For instance, his uncle's visit this time didn't happen in the past, which means the future is slowly changing. "Okay, I will try to get along with him." Elena clenched her little fists with a determined expression. Seeing this, Alaric chuckled and ruffled her hair. "I will go and meet my uncle. You stay here and wait for me." "Yes, my lord." When Alaric turned around, the smile on his face disappeared and his expression grew darker. "Charles, I won't allow you to hurt my family this time. I swear it upon my name." Alaric left with heavy strides. Meanwhile, Elena was about to secretly follow him when a towering figure blocked her path. She yelped in shock, "Sir Galliner." "I'm sorry, Miss Elena, but Lord Alaric told me not to let you wander around." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Inside the Baron's study, a middle-aged man with a scholarly appearance was chatting with Lucas. "I heard that my nephew has become a knight. Where is he?" "I haven't seen him for a while." Lucas grinned, looking incredibly proud of his son's advancement. "Shocking, right?" "Ha ha ha. I don't know how he did it, but he somehow managed to advance. He is not even 20 yet, but he is already a knight." His aptitude is even better than mine. Lucas shook his head with a rueful smile. Certainly. I even thought that you were joking when I read your letter. Charles chuckled, but he was fuming inside. Damn it. A variable has appeared in my plans. Lucas is already giving me a headache, and now my nephew is showing signs of talent that is even better than his father. If he is allowed to grow, he might be the one to succeed Lucas's position. I can't let that happen. Suddenly, knock, knock, knock. Speak of the devil. It must be him. Ha ha ha. Lucas was about to get up to open the door when Charles made a hand gesture. Let me do it. I'd like to see how my nephew has grown up. Hearing this, Lucas nodded and waved his hand. Sure. After getting his permission, Charles stood up and went to open the door. Alaric suppressed the fury in his heart when he saw Charles's face. There was no meaning in confronting his uncle now. Doing so would only alarm him. Alaric, how have you been? You look completely different than the last time I saw you. Charles affectionately hugged, which made Alaric feel disgusted. I'm fine, Uncle. Alaric squeezed out a smile. Would you look at this kid? He is even taller than me now. Charles turned his head to Lucas and chuckled. What a good actor. To think that all of us were fooled by this traitorous bastard. It makes me sick. What are you standing there for? Come in. Your uncle wants to have a chat with you. Charles grabbed his shoulder and pulled him to a seat. Right at this moment, the cyan screen abruptly appeared in front of him. Mission: Revenge Eye. Difficulty: Easy. Challenge Charles Silvesad to a sparring and defeat him. Time limit: 23 hours 59 minutes 59 seconds. Rewards: 100 battle points, 25 EXP, and random talent upgrade card by 1. Penalty for failure: 200 battle points. Underscore? Alaric's eyes were glued over to the screen. A mission. The rewards are even better than the daily missions. Uncle, how about a spar to test your nephew's skills? Alaric stared deeply at Charles. Huh? Chapter 16, Alaric's Sword Skills. You want to challenge me? Charles was taken aback, wondering if he had heard him wrong. I just want to test the progress of my sword skills. Alaric nodded. Charles squinted his eyes. Oh? It seems like you are quite confident with your sword skills to challenge your uncle like this. In that case, let me see the product of your efforts. This arrogant brat. He only became a knight, but he wants to spar with me. Delusional. He scoffed in his heart. He felt that Alaric had become overconfident because of his advancement. How about you come with us, Lucas? Charles smiled faintly. All right. I don't have anything to do anyway. Lucas shrugged while shaking his head. The three immediately headed to the training ground. Their arrival surprised the soldiers and the knights who were in the middle of their training. My lord, a small figure came running towards Alaric. At the sight of her figure, Charles's eyes gleamed. Alaric quickly pulled her and brought her away from Charles. You should go back to the mansion, Elena. He looked at his uncle and saw him staring deeply at Elena. This made his blood boil with rage. That bastard! How dare he look at Elena with such filthy eyes? What is going on, my lord? Did I do something wrong? Elena's shoulders drooped as she looked at him with a pitiful gaze. Looking at her sad face, Alaric smiled lightly and shook his head. You didn't do anything wrong, Elena. I want to stay with you, my lord, please. She grabbed his hand and stared at him with pleading eyes. Alaric's expression softened when he saw her expression. All right, fine, you can stay here, but never leave Gallina's side, okay? Elena's face brightened in an instant. She nodded her head and beamed at him. Yes, my lord. I will stay close to Sir Galliner. Good. Alaric patted her head. Come here, Alaric. Didn't you say that you want to spar with me? Alaric was annoyed when he heard this voice. He turned around and looked at Charles, who was standing in the middle of the training ground. I'm coming, uncle. Alaric steadied his breathing as he walked over to Charles. He then grabbed the training sword from the weapon rack and felt its weight. Since this is just a spar, we shouldn't use mana, Charles reminded him as he played with the training sword in his hand. All right, I have no objections, Alaric smirked. With his SSS class swordsmanship talent, he was confident with his sword skills. Charles might be an elite knight, but his swordsmanship was just average. Even Henry was better than him in terms of pure technique alone. Look at this kid acting so smug. Charles shook his head. Meanwhile, everyone quickly gathered to watch their bout. Charles rarely visited the estate since he was mostly away to do his tasks. The fact that he came to the training ground to spar with Alaric made them feel excited. Lucas decided to officiate their spar. This is just a spar, so don't unleash any fatal moves. The use of mana is also not allowed. If you're both ready, then you can begin at any time. At this moment, Charles raised his training sword with his left hand on his back. Show me the results of your training, my beloved nephew. I will show you the difference between our skills and wipe that grin off your face. Charles disdainfully muttered in his heart. He wasn't taking this seriously at all. He believed that he was superior to Alaric in terms of techniques. Then I won't hold back, Uncle. Alaric's eyes narrowed. Just as his voice fell, his figure blurred as he lunged at Charles while quickly brandishing his sword. Whoosh! HM. Charles raised his eyebrows in surprise when he saw how fast his movements were. Luckily, he had the advantage in terms of physical fitness, so he managed to block Alaric's sword. When their swords clashed, he realized that he would lose if he didn't take this battle seriously. This kid! Damn it! Alaric didn't give him the time to catch his breath. His sword moved like a phantom, attacking Charles from every angle. Pow! 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 Everyone was surprised to see Alaric's display of skills. The coordination of his body was perfect and he moved so seamlessly that it looked like he was dancing. How did Lord Alaric reach this level in just a short amount of time? Unbelievable! Lord Alaric's sword techniques seemed to be better than Lord Charles's. The soldiers and the knights discussed as they observed the battle. Everyone thought that there was only a small difference in their skills, but Lucas had a different opinion. As a transcendent knight, he could see that Charles could hardly keep up with Alaric. This made him feel astonished. Charles might not be that talented in swordsmanship, but he was still someone who had been to the battlefield. His experience alone should be better than Alaric's. However, Alaric was displaying so much finesse that it looked like he was a veteran of many battles. The ferocity in his eyes and the sheer determination of his every strike made the onlookers feel that they were watching an expert. Charles was already using both hands to hold his sword, but he was still barely keeping up with Alaric. How is this possible? He couldn't believe it. The sword skills that he was so proud of looked like garbage when compared to Alaric's. If it wasn't for his better overall physique, he would have already been defeated. After clashing swords more than 20 times, Alaric finally found an opening. He closed the distance and stabbed out his sword. He stopped when the tip of his sword was only a few centimeters away from Charles's neck. Did I lose? Charles stared at Alaric in surprise. The sword skills he displayed were not something that a newbie could do. I surrender. He forced out a smile. He almost used his mana to overturn the battle. Luckily, he managed to stop himself in time, or he would have become a laughingstock. Thank you for letting me win, Uncle. Alaric smiled as he bowed lightly. Charles's face twitched at his words. Chapter 17, each with their own lies. Underscore. Mission complete. You received 100 battle points, 25 EXP, and random talent upgrade card by 1. Underscore. Do you want to use the random talent upgrade card? Yes, no. Before he could decide, Charles suddenly walked over. I'm impressed with your swordsmanship, Alaric, Charles remarked, looking as if he was proud of Alaric's growth. You flatter me. Alaric smiled faintly while cursing in his heart. This traitorous bastard really knows how to act well. You have done well, my son Lucas approached with a broad grin on his face. He looked incredibly happy to see Alaric's performance. Alaric didn't say anything and just smiled as he bowed lightly. By the way, your uncle came here for another matter. He wants to speak with you about it. Why don't you guys discuss it in my study? Lucas suggested. What is this about? Alaric had a bad feeling about this. He looked at his uncle and saw him staring at him with a harmless expression. Just what is this guy up to? All right, let's do that. Alaric agreed with a nod of his head. After the three of them left, everyone was still shocked by the results of the spar. No one expected the young lord to win, and overwhelmingly at that. So Lord Alaric is that powerful. Alana muttered in disbelief as she watched Alaric's figure. Her eyes flashed with deep veneration. A while later, Lucas brought Alaric and Charles to his study room. After taking their seats, Alaric didn't beat around the bush and asked while looking at Lucas with a stern gaze, "What is this all about, father?" Lucas sighed and replied, "Your uncle heard that we managed to get our hands on some dragon-tail ferns, so he came here and asked me to give him a few. I told him that I gave you full authority in handling the herbs, so I didn't make a decision." Alaric's face turned dark upon hearing this. So this was his real objective. No wonder he came here earlier when the party will be held tomorrow. This damn parasite. Alaric glanced coldly at his uncle, but he quickly concealed his anger. "Uncle, did my father tell you that it was me who found the dragon-tail ferns?" Charles raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Eh? You did?" He couldn't help but look at Lucas for confirmation. Lucas nodded. Seeing this, Charles squinted his eyes. "You have really done well this time, my nephew. Since it was you who found the herbs, I won't mistreat you. I will buy it from you for 25 gold coins each. What do you think?" Alaric's eyes flashed with uncertainty. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly realized Charles's intentions. This guy is testing me. It seems like father didn't tell him how many dragon-tail ferns we have. This bastard must have given that price to trick me into revealing how many stocks we have. What a sly snake. Give me a moment to think. Alaric took a deep breath to calm himself before making a decision. Charles stared at him in amusement. "You might be a genius in swordsmanship, but you are still a kid, my dear nephew. Now, let your uncle hear how many dragon-tail ferns you have." After a moment of contemplation, Alaric raised his head and said, "To tell you the truth, we don't have a lot of dragon-tail ferns left. We sold off most of the herbs in different places, so we are only left with a little more than 20 stocks." "You still have more than 20. Charles's eyes flashed with greed the moment he heard this. Meanwhile, Lucas had a different reaction. He stared at Alaric with a hint of surprise and confusion. "I thought we still had several hundred. Why did he lie to his uncle?" Lucas thought deeply, and upon careful consideration, he decided to stay quiet. "That's right. If you want them, I can sell you 15 stocks. The remaining stocks will be given to our knights, so I can't sell them to you. I hope you understand my difficulties, uncle." Alaric revealed a look of regret. While saying those words, he kept an eye on his father to see how he would react. Luckily, it didn't look like Lucas would expose him. "That's fine. I'll take those 15 stocks." Charles didn't even hesitate. "Just where did this kid find so many dragon-tail ferns?" "That will be 375 gold coins, uncle." Alaric extended his hand and smirked. Hearing this, Charles laughed while slapping his thigh. "Ha ha ha. You definitely got this side of yours from your mother." All right, 375 gold coins it is then. I only brought 100 gold coins with me. I will send you the remaining gold coins tomorrow before the party starts." Charles grabbed a small pouch from his clothes and handed it to Alaric. "I trust you, uncle. I will send you the herbs later." Alaric kept the pouch and beamed. All right. Charles seemed to be in a good mood after securing this deal. Although he paid more than the market price, it was worth it. As long as it would help me become a transcendent knight, I don't mind wasting this little bit of money. Once I successfully advance, I will take everything that is rightfully mine." Charles laughed coldly in his heart. After some small talks with his father and uncle, Alaric left and headed back to his room. When he arrived, he immediately opened the system screen with his thoughts. This was one of the things he discovered in the past month. He could control the science screen with his thoughts. He could make it appear and disappear if he willed it. Do you want to use the random talent upgrade card? Yes, no. Seeing this, Alaric clicked yes without hesitation. Congratulations! Your talent horseback riding D has been upgraded to horseback riding C. Alaric Silvasud 90 XP 31/500ths. Potential B. Traits: horseback riding C, swordsmanship SSS, close combat D, archery F, hunting E, tracking F. Strength 28+, stamina 28+, agility 25+, vitality 27+, endurance 27+, mana 13+, battle points 460, stat points 35. Requirements for next advancement: 500 EXP, 100 in all attributes, and 5,000 battle points. Chapter 18, Day of the Celebration. The next day, renowned families from nearby towns and cities came to visit the estate to join the celebration of Alaric's advancement. With the presence of these people, North Pinetown experienced a surge of activity. The streets were packed with tourists, and even merchants who came to sell their goods could be spotted at every turn. The soldiers stationed in the town joined hands with the guards and the knight apprentices of the Silvasud household to maintain security. Meanwhile, inside House Silversword's estate, as the star of today's event, Alaric was dressed in formal attire. At this moment, he was entertaining a few guests when he noticed some familiar faces in the crowd. They are finally here. Excuse me. Alaric excused himself and walked towards a certain spot to greet the acquaintances he had seen. Vince, it's good to see you guys here. Alaric smiled as he greeted them. Vince, who was wearing a blue tunic, jolted in surprise when he heard the familiar voice, "My lord." Behind him were the two sales ladies of the shop, Herline and Griselda. "Greetings, Lord Alaric." The ladies bowed respectfully upon seeing him approaching them. Alaric waved his hand. "How are you guys?" "The kids are still learning the production method. They are a bit clumsy, but they are obedient," Vince responded without thinking. Hearing this, Alaric stared at him with a wry smile. "I didn't ask about work-related matters, Vince." "Oh, is that so?" Vince scratched his head. "What about you two?" Alaric stared at Herline and Griselda. Both women had been using the scented soap for some time, and there were obvious changes in their appearance. Their skin had become smoother and more delicate. They also exuded the unique fragrant scent of Lila. "I have been well, my lord. Thank you for your concern," Herline responded coquettishly. Before she used the scented soap, her only asset was her bombshell body. Back then, she had some acne marks on her face, which made her look average. With the frequent use of their products, the acne marks on her face disappeared, making her look more attractive. "I'm doing great," Griselda shyly replied. Just like Herline, her physical appearance had also noticeably improved. Her skin looked healthier and smoother. She also became a bit more confident due to the improvement in her looks. "I'm glad to hear that. It seems like you ladies have been using the scented soap regularly." "You look even more beautiful now," Alaric complimented them, which made the two women giggle. He chatted with them for a while before he went to greet William, who had come with a few children from the orphanage. "I'm happy to see you and the children, Sir William." Alaric extended his hand while smiling at the old knight. William grabbed his hand and shook it lightly. "Congratulations on your advancement, my lord." "What a young knight. Compared to you, I still have a long way to go," Alaric chuckled. "I'm just a retired knight, my lord. Your future will be even better than mine," the old man responded wholeheartedly. After they exchanged pleasantries, Alaric spoke with the children for quite some time before he went to greet the other guests. By noon, more food was served. Suddenly, a man in his early 20s clapped his hands to gather everyone's attention. Hello, everyone. I'm Dylan Heinrich, son of Baron Smith Heinrich. Dylan was a tall man with short blonde hair. He looked quite handsome in his leather vest. This man was the son of a baron from a neighboring town called Radonia. Their territory was bigger than North Pine Town, but the military strength of the two households were more or less the same. Everyone, including Alaric, turned their gazes to Dylan, wondering what he wanted to say. To make this event even more exciting, why don't we hold a small competition between our knights? Dylan suggested as he searched for a familiar face in the crowd. When he saw Alaric, his gaze stopped, and he gave the latter a friendly nod. That's a great suggestion. How about we send one knight each to compete? Charles supported the idea, his eyes flashing with a cunning glint. What do you think, Lord Lucas? The crowd looked at the head of the estate to seek his opinion. As the Lord of North Pine Town and the host of the banquet, Lucas had the final say in the matter. Looking at everyone's expectant faces, Lucas could only helplessly agree. Fine. Since everyone is eager to see some competition, I will give you my permission. Thank you for giving your approval, Lord Lucas. I hope you can officiate the competition. Dylan bowed to him. All right. That's fine by me. Lucas agreed with a nod. How would you like this competition to proceed? Lucas asked. Dylan was already prepared to answer this question. To make things easier, how about we do single combat? Each household will send their knights to compete until only the victor remains. Hearing this, Lucas had no objections. Sounds good. Does everyone agree with this? He swept his gaze at the crowd. Yes, fine by me. Let's do that. I agree. The guests nodded to show their agreement. Lucas walked towards the middle of the banquet hall and announced, in that case, those who want to join the competition, please send your knights here. The nobles and the martial households who were eager to show off their might immediately sent their knights. The sudden turn of events made the crowd even more excited. Everyone discussed animatedly as they watched the knights step forward one after another. At this moment, there were already 15 knights who had stepped up for the competition. Surprisingly, Dylan Heinrich was one of them. It seems like Lord Dylan is confident in his abilities. Will he be all right against those veteran knights? I think Sir Anthony will win. He has been a knight for decades, and he is the most experienced among the participants. The guests looked at a certain middle-aged knight dressed in leather armor. My beloved nephew, why don't you join the fun? A loud voice drifted into everyone's ears. Hearing this, they turned their head and looked at Charles in surprise. What kind of nonsense plan is this guy up to this time? Alaric stared deeply at his uncle. Chapter 19. Started the friendly matches. He wants Lord Alaric to join the competition. Didn't he just advance to the knight realm recently? I think it's still too early for him to compete with other knights. Is he that confident with his nephew's skills? Lord Alaric is one of the greatest talents in the Empire, but I don't think he can compete with veteran knights at the moment. There is still a huge gap in experience, and this couldn't be bridged with talent alone. The guests discussed among themselves. Meanwhile, Lucas frowned as he looked at his younger brother. He wondered why he was sending his nephew to compete. As if sensing his gaze, Charles smiled and nodded to him. Alaric stepped forward and spoke. Since my uncle has already spoken, then I hope everyone doesn't mind if I join. Everyone stared at him in surprise. They couldn't believe that he would actually agree to join the competition. His bravery alone earned their respect. Lucas stared deeply at Alaric. He even won against his uncle, who is an elite knight. Fighting with these knights shouldn't be an issue as long as he is careful. He had seen his son's skill in swordsmanship. Alaric might lack battle experience, but his raw skill alone was already comparable to veteran knights. Lucas clapped his hand and said, "Then let me announce the rules while the participants are changing into their battle gear." The rules of the competition were simple since it wasn't an official one. Use of mana is prohibited. One must not kill or seriously injure their opponent. Failure to comply with this rule will result in immediate execution. If you are incapacitated or admitted defeat, you lose. Does anyone have any objections to the rules I have proposed? Lucas swept his gaze. No one voiced any objection. Good. The single matches will be drawn randomly. To prevent any suspicions of cheating, may I request a volunteer to perform the drawing of lots? Lucas didn't want to be accused of favoring his son, so he made this request to show his impartiality. One of the guests volunteered to draw the lots. A few minutes later, the participants finally received their pairings. Alaric sorted his memories, but he had no recollection of this knight. I don't recognize this man. He should be an ordinary knight. At this moment, the first match had already started. In a fight between knights, victory and defeat would be decided in just an instant. The most important factor in determining the winner was the skill level of the knights. Their ability to react to any situation was also important. Of course, this only applies when the use of mono was not included. The first match concluded in just a few seconds. The next participants stepped up and headed to the center of the banquet hall. The crowd's applause and cheers echoed, filling the entire venue with excitement. Some people even started betting on their favorite participants, which made the atmosphere even more thrilling. As the matches continued, Dylan's turn finally came. The moment he stepped onto the stage, the noble ladies immediately cheered for him. Well, I don't want to admit it, but he is indeed a bit more handsome than me. Alaric was speechless by the amount of attention he was getting from the crowd. Just like most warriors, Dylan was also a sword user, but he had an uncommon choice for a sword. Unlike most people who preferred shorter swords for increased mobility, he was using a two-handed longsword. Despite the longsword's advantage in reach, the average warrior wouldn't use this type of sword because of its weight and strict requirements in skills. Dylan Heinrich, this guy also participated in the Civil War in my past life, but he was already a transcendent knight at that time. Alaric couldn't help but recall a scene when he witnessed Dylan's might on the battlefield. He was riding his mount at that time with his longsword in his hand. With a single swipe of his sword, multiple enemies would be slain. Other than his skill with the longsword, Dylan was also an expert rider. No matter what type of mount, he managed to control them with ease. Alaric was curious to see how the young Dylan would fight. Dylan's opponent was a spear wielder. He was fast and nimble, which made it harder for Dylan to land a decisive blow. While everyone was watching the fight with heated gazes, Dylan suddenly did something that shocked them. He evaded a vertical slash and released a punch that struck his enemy's shoulder, which made the latter stumble and lose his balance. Using this opportunity, Dylan thrust his sword and stopped when his blade was only a few inches away from his opponent's neck. I admit defeat. You fought well. Dylan sheathed his sword and gave his opponent a salute. As the battle concluded, everyone inside the banquet hall erupted into applause. Dylan's enemy was faster and more nimble, but he still won by using a non-conventional tactic. To some, it might seem unknightly, but on the battlefield, anyone would use every means to survive whatever the method was. There was no such thing as chivalry in a real war. The next participants were called. One of them was the knight who everyone believed would come out as the victor of this competition. His name was Anthony Oliver, a veteran knight from Vale. He was nearing his 60s, but his appearance showed no signs of aging. His gaze was like that of an eagle, sharp and intense. The muscles on his arms bulged as he took out his weapon, a halberd that was almost as tall as him. Contrary to his age, Anthony looked like someone in his 40s. He was as tall as Galliner, but was more muscular than him. Scars were visible on his exposed arms, a clear sign that he had been through many battles. With one look, anyone would be intimidated by him. When Anthony stepped onto the stage, William, who was watching from the distance, revealed a complicated expression. Chapter 20. Dual Sword Wielding. Anthony won without suspense, and he managed to defeat his opponent in just less than 5 moves. Anthony was just on a whole different level. His ability to wield his halberd as well as his footwork was impressive. The crowd cheered for his victory. Soon, the names of the last pair were called. Everyone's eyes gathered upon them. As Alaric stepped onto the stage, he felt the weight of everyone's expectations. If it was another 18-year-old, they might not be able to handle the pressure, but he was different. He was a war veteran in his past life. He had experienced more dangerous situations that made this competition feel trifling to him. Just like the other participants, Alaric's opponent was also a skilled knight who had more than a decade of experience. To the eyes of the crowd, Alaric had no chance of winning. However, some people had different opinions. One of them was Lucas. He had seen Alaric's skills with his own eyes. He even defeated his uncle. Defeating that knight shouldn't be an issue for him, Lucas thought as he announced the commencement of the match. For this match, Alaric wanted to try something new. He gracefully unsheathed a pair of swords and twirled them in his hands in fluid motion, which dazzled the crowd. Lord Alaric is a dual sword wielder. That's even more difficult than using a two-handed long sword. He looks quite skilled in handling two swords. They don't feel or look awkward every time he makes a move. Meanwhile, Alaric's opponent was your typical knight. He was using a sword in his dominant hand and a rectangular shield in his left hand. Underscore. Mission: Might of House Silvasod. Difficulty: Easy. Show everyone the might of House Silvasod by winning the competition. Rewards: 150 battle points, 30 XP, F-Rank talent card by 1. Penalty for failure: minus 300 battle points. Underscore. Seeing this, Alaric furrowed his eyebrows in surprise. The penalty was quite severe this time. To accumulate 300 battle points, he needed to do a full month of daily missions. Should I use my stat points to ensure my victory? A thought crossed his mind. At the moment, he still had 35 unallocated stat points. If he used them to increase certain stats, he would have an advantage against knights of the same level. Alaric no longer hesitated. He used up 20 unallocated stat points and distributed them evenly to his agility and strength. Alaric Silvasod 90 XP, 31 500ths. Potential: B. Traits: Horseback riding C, Swordsmanship SSS, Close combat D, Archery F, Hunting E, Tracking F. Strength: 38+. Stamina: 28+. Agility: 35+. Vitality: 27+. Endurance: 27+. Mana: 13+. Battle points: 460. Stat points: 15. Requirements for next advancement: 500 EXP, 100 in all attributes, and 5,000 battle points. With the sudden increase in his agility and strength, Alaric felt more confident. At this moment, his opponent suddenly grew impatient and launched a simple probing slash. His sword looked slow in Alaric's eyes. So this is the advantage of having a higher agility? Alaric effortlessly evaded his opponent's sword. He then moved forward in a flash and released a sweep kick. Due to his ghost-like movements, his opponent failed to react in time and lost his footing, stumbling over as he tried to regain his balance. Alaric didn't waste any time and brandished his sword, cleaving it down after a 180-degree spin in midair. His opponent realized his intention and immediately raised his shield as he stumbled backward. As soon as Alaric's sword came in contact with his shield, a powerful force pushed the knight back, throwing him to the ground. What a powerful force! The knight was stunned by the force behind Alaric's sword. Just as he was about to stand up, he sensed a cold sensation on his neck. He looked down and saw Alaric's sword pressing on his neck. Seeing this, he smiled bitterly. I concede. Alaric sheathed his swords and helped the man stand up. It was a good fight. The knight bowed to him and left. The crowd couldn't believe their eyes. A young knight who had only advanced a week ago actually managed to defeat an experienced knight in such an overwhelming fashion. Unbelievable! No wonder Lord Charles confidently told Lord Alaric to join the competition. I have never seen someone so proficient in dual sword wielding. Lord Alaric looked so graceful in that battle. Amazing! Alaric's acquaintances were also shocked by his display of skills, especially Rasmus, who was currently watching the competition together with William and the children from the orphanage. So Lord Alaric is this powerful? Rasmus's eyes flashed with admiration. You have followed a great man, Rasmus. You should learn from him, William muttered as he patted his shoulder. The old knight was similarly stunned. He never expected the young knight to be that powerful. Yes, Grandpa, Rasmus clenched his hands with a determined look. Meanwhile, Charles was fuming after the battle concluded. Alaric's swordsmanship was becoming more and more unfathomable in his eyes, and even an elite knight like him felt threatened. He wanted Alaric to join the competition and have him face defeat at the hands of the experienced knights. However, things happened beyond his expectations. So his victory against me wasn't a mere fluke. He realized at that moment that he had severely underestimated his nephew. No, the competition isn't over yet. That old man, Anthony, and that gigolo, Dylan, are still there. They should be able to beat that brat. With Alaric's victory, the first round of the competition finally ended. Another person was called in to draw the lots for the next round of the competition. This time, only 8 participants remained. Each of them was a knight of a higher caliber. Among them, Alaric and Dylan were young, while the remaining 6 had more than a decade of experience. A moment later, the results of the drawing of lots were revealed. The guests' enthusiasm intensified after the pairings for the second round were announced. More people joined in the betting of the candidates, which caused the entire venue to shake with excitement.